Chapter 702. Against the drunken singing bandit and archer 2-in-1 speed pursuit team, they were completely routed by Gu Fei's attacks. Eternal and the others, who had been focused on retreating, also stopped in their tracks. They turned around to look at this inconceivable scene. At this moment, they rejoiced that they had a character with speed like Boundless Mang in their party. Otherwise, with their movement speed, they might not have been able to see this scene. Abnormal. Too abnormal. Everyone muttered to themselves, saying the same thing. They knew that this wasn't the end of dancing for wine, but even if it was only 200 or 300 people, being beaten to this state by a single person was still a shocking thing to hear. Can one really fight against a multitude in an online game? A bunch of people looked at each other. Any normal gamer would never be able to keep up with Gu Fei's valiance. Gu Fei, who was electrocuting people all over the mountain, paid great attention to his mana recovery. In a situation where he was completely in control, even after electrocuting so many people, his mana didn't decrease. Instead, it increased. At this moment, it was already full. With Upstream's command, everyone seemed to have found the right direction. They turned around and ran into the embrace of the main group. Gu Fei didn't let them go. He continued to chase behind them, releasing lightning and thunder. Upstream's face was like a sky filled with lightning, flickering between bright and dark. Magic formation. Upstream took a step forward and roared angrily. As the guild leader, Dancing for Wine's magic formation was personally led by him. It was their signature dish in group battles. As long as one stepped into the range of their magic formation, no one had the ability to escape. As their coordination grew more and more proficient, the magic formation's attack range reached its maximum. The positions that their magic formation couldn't reach wasn't a problem with their skill, but rather a setting of the game. Mage's magic control could only reach so far. The thief and archer team returned to their party with their heads lowered, not daring to speak. They also felt very embarrassed, and were even too embarrassed to raise their heads to ask for a reply from the priest. No one paid attention to them. The mages obeyed the summons of Countercurrent and stood at the front. Everyone raised their staffs high, waiting for Gu Fei to come over and then stew him in a pot of fire. However, when Gu Fei was about 30 meters away from them, he stopped moving. The mages gripped their staffs so tightly that their hands were sweating. They stared at Gu Fei, but yes, Gu Fei did not take another step forward. 30 meters was outside of a mage's attack range. As expected of a mage, he understood this data very well. All the mages had been holding back their energy, waiting to erupt. In the end, Gu Fei stopped just as they were about to spit out blood. Everyone held their breaths and suffered internal injuries. Countercurrent was indeed worthy of being the guild leader. When the mages were about to spit out blood, he still maintained his calm and shot a chain of fireballs towards the sky, sending a message, "Advance." The mages lined up and moved forward. If the enemy doesn't advance, I'll advance. With this thought in mind, the enemy retreated. Fuck! Countercurrent finally couldn't hold it in anymore and spat out blood. With Gu Fei's movement speed, in the time it took for them to advance, he had already taken 3 steps back. It was impossible to close the distance between them and Gu Fei. The only ones who could close the distance were the thieves and archers. But this time, going against the flow and looking back, the thieves and archers were all like withered willows. They didn't even dare to raise their heads. They couldn't be counted on at all. According to Shan Xiling's understanding, if they had a priest to heal them at that time, they wouldn't have been so utterly defeated. But the problem was that they didn't have one, and when Qianli got drunk, his movements were erratic, making it difficult for them to figure out what to do. Moreover, his eyes were sharp. Everyone wanted to take turns to eat bread, but in the end, he would attack whoever ate the bread. Countercurrent finally understood. A team without a priest couldn't suppress Qianli's drunken, and a team with a priest couldn't catch up to Qianli's drunken. This was a dead end. Countercurrent looked at his team and asked a question. Do you have a priest that adds agility? The guild was silent. The knowledgeable people realized this problem at this time. To suppress Qianli's drunken, they had to have a speed that could keep up with him. From this perspective, it seemed like they had 1,000 people fighting against Qianli's drunken, but in reality, there were only 300 people. The short-legged warriors, mages, and priests didn't have a chance to fight the opponent at all. Even if there were some who added agility, how could these professions be so extreme as to put all their points into agility? Without this speed as a guarantee, they wouldn't even be able to face Qianli's drunken face-to-face. Having more people didn't mean that you had more power. Having more useful people was more power. By the time Countercurrent realized this, it was already too late. The 300 people they had were no match for a single Gu Fei. In Shan Xiling's report, not only did he point out that Gu Fei definitely had the ability to recover his mana, he also suspected that Gu Fei even had equipment that could recover his health. Coupled with his agility, he was able to dodge more than 95% of the attacks that were aimed at him. He was basically immortal. In the previous exchange, Shan Xiling felt that the biggest damage that Gu Fei suffered was probably when he rushed into his own flaming 3,000 layers flames. At the end of the report, Shan Xiling earnestly pointed out to Countercurrent. With drunken Qianli's awareness and skills, he had the ability to drag them down. Shan Xiling reminded Countercurrent. They didn't lose a level in the city battle, so they could afford to waste time. But drunken Qianli could afford to waste time even more, because he was just one person with no mission or burden. If he wanted to cause trouble for Singing and Wine, he could go all out and kill at least hundreds of Singing and Wine's people every time. If he died, he would come again, and then he would bring back a few hundred more. If this continued, would they still be able to fight the city battle? Shan Xiling's description of this ultimate scenario made Countercurrent's heart tremble. But in front of him, he was riding a tiger and couldn't back down. 1,000 people had already rushed over, and then silently retreated with their tails between their legs. What kind of logic was this? At this point, did he want face or did he want his future? Going against the current, he once again encountered a difficult time to make a decision. In his heart, he deeply hated Shan Xiling for being so hateful. His analysis was so clear and logical, so why didn't he publicly say it in the guild channel so that everyone could understand? Why did he have to send a private message? If he said that to the guild members, even if they understood, it would be the same as giving in to 1,000 miles of drunkenness. The one who gave the order was him, and now the one who made the decision was him. How could he still be the guild leader? At this moment, Countercurrent even had the thought of throwing in the towel. Beside him, after seeing Gu Fei pull away from them and then stop to watch them, they began to watch Countercurrent, waiting for the guild leader to make a decision. Countercurrent looked up the hillside, and Gu Fei also seemed to be looking down the hillside. Countercurrent wished that he could send a private message to Gu Fei at this time, but unfortunately, the system deprived him of this right. Even if they retreated now, what if Qianli didn't give up and chased after them again? If that was the case, the mage would be able to trap him with an array. If he didn't chase after them, then they could just shamelessly pretend that their plan had failed, and let Shan Xiling bring a few more people to pretend to inquire about Qianli's whereabouts, turning a big problem into a small one and a small one into nothing. With an idea in mind, Countercurrent quickly began to implement it. He issued an order in the guild channel, which meant that if Qianli didn't attack, the array wouldn't be able to display its power. If they pretended to retreat, he would definitely come forward. The mage would hide behind them, and as soon as he entered their range, the array would be destroyed. After everyone heard this, they also felt that there was no other way, because they really couldn't catch up to Qianli, so they could only think of a way to lure him over. At this time, Shan Xiling sent a private message to Countercurrent. You better think carefully. If Qianli gets drunk and decides to retaliate, Countercurrent closed the message and blocked Shan Xiling. This guy only knows how to private message. Private message your ass. Countercurrent was so annoying. Shan Xiling sent a message but didn't get a reply, and when he tried again, the system rejected him. Knowing that he had been blocked, he was confused. Did I say something wrong? Shan Xiling pondered. Singing to Wine began to wriggle as the team retreated. The mage was originally standing at the front, so now that the team was reversed, they naturally retreated to the back. If Qianli got drunk, suddenly spread out, and then activated the array, it would indeed be very interesting. Everyone thought, he's moving. In the guild channel, the spy in charge of monitoring Qianli sent a message. Everyone was excited. Did he take the bait? Countercurrent's face was full of tears. In fact, he hoped that Qianli would stop chasing after him after getting drunk, and then turn a big problem into a small one and a small one into nothing. Who would have thought that Qianli would step into his trap after getting drunk? How could Countercurrent not know that this would attract endless revenge from Qianli? He was afraid of this, so he blocked Shan Xiling to vent his anger. But he had no other choice. He had to give himself a way out. He bluntly told the guild members that if Qianli couldn't deal with him after getting drunk, then retreat. Countercurrent couldn't bring himself to do this. Coming. Mages, get ready. This time, everyone didn't need to command Countercurrent anymore. They actively prepared for battle, especially those thieves and archers who had been bullied by Gu Fei. They kept urging in the channel, hoping that the mage would avenge them. They were so anxious that Countercurrent wanted to strangle them to death. Why didn't anyone in the guild who understood what was going on? Countercurrent forgot that there were people who understood what was going on. It was just that they privately messaged him, making him very unhappy. It's about time, just a few more steps and he'll be in range. The mages said to each other. We have to go a few more steps, or else we won't be able to spread out. Yes. But what do we do now? Pretend that we don't know he's behind us? Doesn't that sound fake? Should we hurry up a few steps and pretend that we're running away? I don't think we need to pretend that we're afraid because there's no need to be afraid in the first place. Just leave if we can't hit him normally, numb him, and when he lets his guard down, take a few more steps forward and we'll counterattack. Someone said. Everyone discussed how to get Qianli to take the bait after getting drunk. Their enthusiasm was unprecedentedly high, and Countercurrent wanted to die. We should be able to hit him from our side. A mage at the end, the one closest to Gu Fei in a straight line, reported. Relax, numb him, lure him to the bait, oh my god. As this person was talking about the guidelines, a lightning bolt flashed down from the sky, and the mage closest to Gu Fei was struck until he was limp inside and out. He's making a move. Everyone shouted, and reflexively turned around to counterattack. In the end, Gu Fei retreated, and they couldn't catch up with his speed. Gu Fei was still out of their spell range, and the mages could only watch helplessly. What do you mean by that? Everyone was dumbfounded. Gu Fei suddenly closed in, and with another lightning bolt, he struck that person again. Priests. That person was about to explode from another hit, and he shouted for help. There were quite a few priests in the army, and some promptly came over to help. The mages didn't know what to do, but the soles of their feet suddenly heated up. Fire 3,000 layers flames. Run! Everyone ran, but those who were a bit slower were still burned. At this distance of 30 meters, Gu Fei was sneakily casting spells, and it really wasn't easy to notice. Gu Fei added another lightning bolt to the injured mage, and one of the mages actually died. The mages went crazy. At this distance, Gu Fei could hit them, and they could also hit Gu Fei. Thus, they chanted spells, but with so many of them, they were too big of a target. Moreover, even though there were many of them, they couldn't set up an array to cut off Gu Fei's path of retreat, because Gu Fei was in the range of the mages. When he saw the other side attack, he promptly retreated. That area of effect spell ignited, and the area where Gu Fei had been standing was unreasonably dense. Who knew how many mages had cast spells in that area, and if Gu Fei was hit, he would undoubtedly die, but the problem was that he couldn't. At this time, he circled to the edge of the flames and raised his hand to secretly cast a heavenly flaming wheel. The mages counterattacked, and Gu Fei ran again. What's going on? We seem to be being kited. This is a mage's way of fighting. Would Qianli still fight like this when he's drunk? He just doesn't use it, but that doesn't mean he can't. Long-range classes had the possibility of kiting. Currently, mages often used Ice Whirlwind to slow down their opponents, and then gain the advantage of speed to kite them. There were also some mages who, to save trouble, sacrificed some intelligence, added some agility, and then used a pair of high-quality shoes to kill those classes without agility. And Gu Fei's current equipment, from a conventional mage's point of view, used agility to gain an absolute advantage in movement speed, then relied on equipment to maintain powerful magic damage, and now had equipment to maintain mana. This kind of equipment, in fact, didn't need Gu Fei. Even if Yu Tian Shenming, Drifting, Sword Demon, and any other expert in the game had this kind of equipment, the effect wouldn't be bad if they used the conventional way of fighting. Just like now, if the enemy advanced, they would retreat, and if the enemy retreated, they would harass. They could also harass the entire guild. The only difference was that when the enemy's 300 archers and thieves moved out, these people would definitely be defeated. And Gu Fei was better at close combat, so he could beat these 300 people until they ran all over the mountain. A full-strength mage, Gu Fei, was lucky enough to experience it for the first time, going against the current. Invincible in close combat, returning to long-range mages, going against the current wanted to cry but had no tears. Someone suggested that the thieves and archers go back to cut off his retreat, and then the big team would close in, and the mages would kill him. But the thieves and archers shook their heads like a rattle drum. Their reasoning was also realistic. If they could stop him, they would have done it already. Why would they need to teach them? So someone suggested that they divide into several groups to surround him, and then slowly shrink back, but it was also rejected. This was a hillside, and Qianli was drunk looking down from above. So many people's movements were seen by the enemy. There was no room for such a big movement. Would people foolishly stay where they were and wait for the enemy to surround them? Just as everyone was nervously discussing, Gu Fei continued to harass them. Lightning was a sure hit, and no one could dodge it. Casting 2 AoE spells at the same time was also quite troublesome. Now that Gu Fei was near, everyone was running around like headless chickens, to prevent themselves from being put on the fire. Gu Fei was having fun, and even threw a wall of electricity once, but it was very passive. As long as someone didn't go up and touch it, it basically didn't do any damage, so it was a bit of fun. Even as they were tossing and turning, Drinking and Singing was still able to maintain the pace of their retreat. They were about to reach the end of the hill and reach the plains. Along the way, they had lost about 10 people. Their losses weren't that great, but the problem was that they couldn't do anything to 1,000 miles drunk. Going against the current hoped to hear a voice. He hoped that someone would come out and make a compromise, but there wasn't. Compromise, to be honest, was something that only the guild could think of. In all fairness, even if they died, they wouldn't lose a level, so there wasn't anything to be afraid of. That was why everyone was still discussing how to deal with Qianli, even though they were being bullied so badly. Most of the ordinary players weren't like going against the current or Shan Xiling. They didn't think about how they would be able to smoothly progress in the war. At this time, they were completely immersed in figuring out how to deal with this boss, Qianli, and couldn't pull themselves out of it. Should warriors and priests form a team to attract aggro? Someone suggested. He'll run, right? He'll run and throw spells at random. The warriors and priests shook their heads. Don't we have classes that add agility? We do, but we don't add as much as him. There's still a long way to go. Some classes that added agility were worried. I think it's better for thieves to sneak behind him. You guys don't have to take the initiative to attack, just stand behind him. When we mages move forward, he'll retreat. At that time, you guys can block him. As long as you have a few seconds, we mages can take a few steps forward, and the magic circle will fall. A few steps won't work, really. Why? Teleport, 6 meters. In that instant, he can still jump out of the magic circle. Damn, I forgot he knows how to do that. This means that if we want to hit him with the magic circle, we'll need to move 6 meters more than a normal person. Considering his reaction speed and movement speed, I think it'll be 10 meters. 10 meters? Even if we all die, we won't be able to get that distance, the thieves said. This is the boundary of the magic circle. Just this alone will require us to move 10 meters. In reality, we still have to move another 5 meters, for a total of 15 meters, to be absolutely safe. 15 meters? Stop joking, he's basically walking around within 30 meters. He hasn't even taken a single step forward. His movement is extremely precise. Damn, he's a mage after all. What about the archers? What if we gather the archers and fire together? Someone suddenly suggested. Chapter 703. The people of Drinking and Singing had a subconscious resistance towards the archers, because their most powerful competitors were the archers who dominated the 4 seas, And the strongest were the archers and the archers. This was like two celebrities who were ashamed to wear the same outfit. The players of singing and drinking didn't like to use the archers as the main force to decide the outcome of a battle. Thus, at this moment, when they were about to run out of ideas, someone finally brought up the archer. This could also be considered as the guild culture of singing and drinking. At this moment, if it was any other guild at this moment, in this situation, the archer would have long since been used. The archers had a longer range than the mages, and could attack Gu Fei from a position where Gu Fei couldn't hit them. Previously, because Gu Fei had intentionally stretched the formation, the archers hadn't been able to form a group. But now, they had long since joined forces with the people of the guild. Archers! Archers! The guild was calling out to them from top to bottom. When had an archer ever experienced the feeling of being looked forward to by the masses? However, how could the archers have the time to be complacent? Just like the thieves, they had barely managed to escape from Gu Fei's lightning bolt. Now that they were suddenly summoned by the guild, the archers thought that the guild was going to use them as cannon fodder due to their status in the guild. The archers didn't say a word. On the other hand, the players next to the archers immediately pushed them when they saw that there were archers next to them. Hey, what are you spacing out for? I'm calling you guys. I know, I don't need you to say it. The archers were all impatient. Archers, gather and prepare to fire. In the end, Against the Current still spoke up. The guild was in chaos, and no matter how unwilling he was as the guild leader, he had no choice but to come out and take control of the situation. Moreover, at this moment, everyone wanted to defeat Gu Fei. Against the Current felt pain in his heart, but he couldn't go against the wishes of the masses. He could only bite the bullet and do it. Disregarding everything else, the guild leader's words were still quite effective. The idle players immediately quieted down and kept the guild channel clean. Then, they saw the command to go against the flow flying in one after another. The archers who were mixed in the group finally moved and quickly gathered together. Everyone looked over. How pitiful! Singing to Wine originally had over 100 archers, but now there were only a few dozen left. They had all been killed while chasing after Qianli with the thief. In fact, the archers' losses were even lighter than the thieves. After all, they weren't melee fighters. None of the thieves who got close to them survived. That's it? Is it enough? Some players couldn't help but whisper. Even the archer himself wasn't confident. The guild leader of Against the Current was quite a troublemaker. He couldn't wait for everyone to realize that Qianli couldn't be defeated once he was drunk, so he was fooling around. When everyone had gathered, he yelled, "Ready, shoot!" Although the archers had gathered together, they still had to be in position to attack. At this time, there were many other classes blocking in front of them. How could they shoot? With Against the Current's order, some people shot while others were still looking for a position. It was a mess. Scattered arrows flew towards Gu Fei. The only thing Gu Fei was worried about was the archers' formation. He had been wondering why Singing to Wine hadn't used the archers' long-range advantage when they were all gathered together. At this time, the archers finally began to work, but the shooting was too ridiculous. Gu Fei felt that it would be better to call all the men in the brothel over to shoot a wave than this. Gu Fei either shot or dodged. In the end, if an arrow didn't hit its target, he would find the time to throw an area of effect spell. Against Singing for Wine's chaotic dodging, Gu Fei targeted an archer and happily threw a lightning bolt. No need to dodge, his AoE spell can't kill anyone. Someone in the guild shouted. One won't kill him. What if he throws two at the same time? Someone questioned. Where are the archers? Interrupt his casting. The archers had tears streaming down their faces. Interrupting meant hitting the target. If they could hit the target, why would they bother interrupting? They could just kill Gu Fei at the same time. Homing arrows, use homing arrows. Someone shouted. As a result, white arrows shot out from Singing to Wine's formation. When Gu Fei saw that they were homing arrows and there were a lot of them, he turned around and ran. An archer was different from a mage. Different archery skills had different firing speeds and ranges. In addition, the archer's skill points also had an effect on these attributes. But in any case, a skill like homing arrow had a 100% hit rate, so other aspects would naturally be greatly restricted. At this time, Gu Fei had a 30-meter starting advantage. After that, he sprinted and used teleportation. As a result, the homing arrows were naturally dejected. Singing to Wine's members saw that even the archers couldn't do anything to Gu Fei and became dispirited. Taking advantage of Countercurrent's revival in the channel, someone immediately asked, "Guild leader, what do we do?" Countercurrent was going crazy. Each and every one of them only knew what to do. In such a big guild, how could there be no one who understood the ways of the world? At this time, did they know to give their guild leader a ladder so that he could escape? Countercurrent glared at the brothers around him. These dogs usually followed him around, but they didn't even know how to play the bad guy. Countercurrent felt that he had failed in cultivating talents. He heard that in Reigning the Seas, Reflection of Years would often play the bad guy for Sworn Sword. His guild was lacking such a talent. Just as Countercurrent and the others around him were staring at him in confusion, there was finally a voice in the guild. Fan Xiling was still Fan Xiling after all. Shan Xiling's loyalty to the guild was undoubtedly very high. When he considered a problem, he would always consider the guild's interests. He knew that he could no longer compete with Gu Fei, but he didn't guess that Countercurrent's intentions. He thought that Countercurrent still wanted to fight Gu Fei, so he sent a private message to Countercurrent to persuade him to give up. He didn't know that Countercurrent already had such intentions, but he couldn't bring himself to take back the battle order that he had previously issued. Fan Xiling was truly selfless. After being blocked by Countercurrent in a fit of anger, he was still worried for the guild. However, Countercurrent couldn't hear his voice, so Fan Xiling had no choice but to publicly speak in the guild channel. "Guild leader, we can't go on like this." Fan Xiling rambled on and on about what he had said to Countercurrent before. His words were filled with more sincerity, and Countercurrent was overjoyed. Before Fan Xiling could finish speaking, he had already sent a message saying, "Fan Xiling's words make sense." Fan Xiling was stunned. Did I make sense? Didn't I say the same thing before? Why didn't he respond? Fan Xiling was at a loss. He understood the situation and the pros and cons, but he had never thought about the human heart. He would never understand Countercurrent's cunning thoughts. At this time, Fan Xiling was stunned for a moment before saying, "I suggest we retreat. Qianli Drunk is too arrogant. I'm not willing to retreat just like that." Countercurrent said. Fan Xiling was anxious and was about to say something when Countercurrent continued. "However, Fan Xiling's analysis makes sense. Right now, we are in the middle of a city war. It's more important to hurry up and earn points. It's not worth wasting time on Qianli Drunk. We should retreat first and go back to fight the city war. There will be plenty of opportunities to settle accounts with Qianli Drunk in the future." Fan Xiling was quite puzzled. What Countercurrent said seemed to be the same as his original intention, but it was also different. Fan Xiling did raise the point that the city war was very important, but what he meant was that the city war was the key, and Qianli Drunk had the ability to single-handedly disrupt their city war, so they shouldn't provoke him. Why did Countercurrent's words sound like he was a great person who didn't care about petty people? Countercurrent's trap was not just this. He pretended to be magnanimous while saying that this account would be settled in the future. But in fact, if everyone calmed down and thought about it, what kind of account was this? Wasn't it just that during the city war, Gu Fei was defending the city, so the two sides became enemies? Once the city war was over, this account would naturally be settled. Was there still a need to settle it? At that time, he would sit down with Qianli Drunk, drink a cup of wine, hold hands, and be good friends for life. Countercurrent's mind had already reached this point. For many of the guild members, Fan Xiling's analysis was reasonable, and the president's words were not without dignity. Plus, no one could think of a way to deal with Qianli Drunk, so in the end, they all tacitly agreed. Even so, no one had the nerve to leave arrogantly, so everyone bowed their heads and silently retreated. How could Gu Fei know about this? Just now, their archers had forced him to retreat. Gu Fei was still thinking that if they caught up, he would use the same old trick to drag out the battle line and electrocute them one by one. But who would have thought that they would not chase after him, instead turning around and continuing down the mountain? Gu Fei didn't understand what was going on, so he quickly chased after them and threw a few more spells at them from 30 meters away. There were also people with fiery tempers in drinking and singing. Seeing that Gu Fei was still going on, roaring angrily and shouting to kill, but things had already reached this point, going against the current would not allow anyone to incite the flames of war. Immediately, they used the city war as an excuse, asking everyone to ignore Gu Fei. Are we just going to let him electrocute us one by one? Someone said indignantly. Don't be surprised, the strange will defeat itself. Countercurrent was quite a good phrase. And this phrase was very suitable for Gu Fei. Gu Fei chased after him for a while, but when he saw that drinking and singing completely ignored him and didn't react at all, he knew that the other party had silently admitted defeat. Should he continue chasing? Gu Fei believed that if he continued to pester him, drinking and singing would definitely not be able to bear it anymore and retaliate with his life. Under the rules of the city war, both sides were meant to kill each other. Even if Gu Fei did this, there was nothing wrong with it. But why would Gu Fei care about the rules of the game? In his opinion, doing this was going too far. In the end, he stopped and watched drinking and singing slowly leave. Countercurrent let out a long sigh of relief. He was really afraid that Qianli would get drunk and continue to take points from their guild. Now it seemed that as long as you didn't anger him, he would know his limits. Seeing that everyone in the guild was quite dispirited, Countercurrent felt that he needed to say something to cheer them up, so he sent a message in the channel. Did Qianli stop chasing after us after getting drunk? He doesn't dare to go too far. I think it's not that he doesn't dare to, he just doesn't want to, right? Fan Xiling said. At $% and Countercurrent really wanted to strangle Fan Xiling to death. Didn't he know that he was just lying to himself? Didn't he know that when Qianli was drunk, it was just that he didn't want to, not that he didn't dare to? Was there a need for you to say it out loud? Why was this person so annoying? Countercurrent bared his teeth and wanted to bite someone. Gu Fei stood on the hillside, watching as the couple gradually disappeared into the distance. Beside him, Flower Man, Strange Pupil, and the others slowly approached. At first, they wanted to hide in the forest on the hill and set up some traps, but when they looked back at Gu Fei's battle, they felt that something was wrong. They thought that Gu Fei was only trying to buy some time at most, but the more they watched, the more they felt that drinking and singing was in trouble. Especially when they saw Gu Fei casting spells in the last 30 meters of mage range, they had the same thought as singing and singing. This guy is a mage. As the group approached, Gu Fei turned around and pointed behind him. Let's go. Silence. No one knew what to say. Praise? Admiration? Amazement? None of these were enough to express their feelings. In the end, it was Fireball who was the most shameless. He rushed forward and hugged Gu Fei's thigh. Brother Zue, I've decided to cut ties with these shameless people. Take me into your mercenary group, I'll help you carry your equipment from now on. What are you talking about? Let go of me. Gu Fei tried to swing his leg, but he couldn't get rid of it. Fireball howled. Who's going to beat this shameless man to death? Gu Fei was helpless. No one said a word. Everyone actually had the urge to throw Fireball at him, but they weren't shameless enough to do that. The flower men all expressed their admiration. Strange Pupil and the others watched the farce unfold. They were both annoyed and amused. Fireball still refused to let go. Gu Fei dragged him toward Strange Pupil. He wiped off the rings on his left and right and said to Strange Pupil, "This is good stuff." Yeah. Strange Pupil nodded. Gu Fei was reluctant, but in the end he mustered up the courage to ask, "Are you selling it?" Strange Pupil said. Gu Fei had no choice but to hand it back to Gu Fei. The Strange Pupil accepted it and put it back on his finger. "Where did you get it?" Gu Fei asked. "A chain quest," Strange Pupil said. A chain quest meant that it couldn't be repeated, so there was no need to ask her about the details of the quest. "I don't think there's any equipment like this on the market." Gu Fei said. "I've never seen it before." Strange Pupil was very cautious. "It's a regeneration equipment, right? Brother Zue, we'll keep an eye out for it for you," Tsubasa Sakaratsuka said. "Thank you," Gu Fei said. "What do we do now?" Mang Mang asked. My quest. Gu Fei slapped his head. What quest? The others asked. Find an NPC. Wandering Soul and the others were tricking us. We don't know where they went with the NPC. I'll go look for them, Gu Fei said. Oh, do you need help? Tsubasa Sakuratsuka asked. It's fine. Gu Fei said. He didn't want Eternal Life Among Flowers help at this time, because he knew that it would make things difficult for them. The players in Cloud City would look down on them. Although they didn't seem to care, that was their business. Gu Fei couldn't just let them go. Alright, you guys have fun, I'm going, Gu Fei said. Brother Zue, I want to follow you. Fireball was still hugging him. Let go. Don't force me to cut you. Gu Fei raised his sword. Fireball knew that Gu Fei was a man of his word, so he could only let go. He squeezed and squeezed, but he couldn't squeeze out any tears. On the bank of the Yunjiao Lake outside the Cloud City, a group of people were in a hurry. They looked very anxious, but their pace was so unhurried, and this unhurried pace only brought them pain. No one wanted to be so unhurried. They wanted nothing more than to fly forward, but they had no choice. They were accompanied by an NPC. The NPC didn't care about their emotions at all. He just walked unhurriedly. Uncle Giljo, can you walk faster? Some players knew that communicating with the NPC was useless, but they still used this method to vent their emotions. Infeng, how's the situation over there? Someone asked. They've already been wiped out by singing to wine, Infeng said. However, they probably didn't notice our trap. What about the others under the tree? They won't come over. If they do, they might be targeted. We can only rely on ourselves for now. Everyone be careful, Infeng said. As long as our disguise isn't seen through, we're far from the battlefield. No one will notice us, someone said. I hope so. This NPC has brought us so far. Just where are we going? Infeng muttered to himself. Cloud Suburb Lake. What a good place. Everyone, be careful not to step on anyone. One of them smiled lewdly. There were indeed countless people in the underbrush, but as long as they did not encounter someone like Gu Fei, the crazy men and women here would not come out to be curious about anything. However, at this time, there were two pairs of eyes staring unblinkingly at this group of people, and the mouths and noses under these two pairs of eyes were also panting heavily. Good boy, you ran quite far. You can't really be thinking of going 30 miles away, can you? Zhang Jin said. Of course not. That's enough. I say, why are you following me? Someone said from 30 miles away. Coincidence. Zhang Jin said. Did you see that group? Someone said from 30 miles away. I saw them. Do you recognize them? That's Infeng. Someone said from 30 miles away. That Infeng who's messing around with the quest? Zhang Jin asked. Yes. The main culprit of our current troubles. So the pit was just a cover. They've already led the NPC here. Someone said from 30 miles away. Hurry and notify the guild. Are you crazy? You notified the guild that Infeng is at Cloud Suburb Lake? How did you know? You saw it. But the problem is that we should be chasing after Qianli in Cloud Ridge, right? Do you have eyes for Qianli? Jiang Jin said. Don't drag me into it. Jiang Jin said. The quest is important. If we tell the guild leader might not blame us. Someone said from 30 miles away. If the quest can be snatched back, then the guild leader might give you a credit. The problem is that there's no such setting. I think the guild leader will kill you and Infeng together. Do you still want to say it? If you want to say it, then I'll be on my way. Let's wait and see. Chapter 704. 30 li away, Jiang Jinjiu discovered the diversion mission under the guild tree. However, due to his status as a deserter, he was too embarrassed to report it to the guild. Since he didn't need to report it to the guild, there was nothing to worry about. If he continued to watch, it would just be gossip. 8 or not 8, that was the question. They're gone. They're gone. 30 li away, Jiang Jinjiu shouted. Louder. Jiang Jinjiu said. They're gone. 30 li away whispered. I won't report it to the guild anyways. What they do has nothing to do with me. They can go wherever they want. Jiang Jinjiu was quite open-minded. He laid down comfortably in the grass and looked up at the sky. His hand searched his pocket and finally pulled out half a bottle of wine. You can drink while lying down? 30 li away seemed to have discovered something even more interesting. Jiang Jinjiu didn't reply. He just took a sip for 30 li to see. Impressive. 30 li away nodded. Then he sneakily raised half his head and looked outside. Hey, they really left. Let's go take a look. What's there to look at? Jiang Jinjiu was impatient. We can't snatch this segment. Maybe we can start from here for the next segment? 30 li away seemed to love the guild more than Jiang Jinjiu. He was more concerned about the guild's interests, especially when he wasn't in too much danger. When Jiang Jinjiu heard this, he felt that it made sense. He closed the bottle and put it back in his pocket. He got up and said, "Let's go take a look." The two slowly moved through the grass, occasionally peeking their heads out to observe what was in front of them. However, as they moved, they couldn't see what was in front of them. Several times, they accidentally pushed aside a pile of grass in front of them and saw a man and a woman looking at them in fear. Sorry. 30 li away said. You guys continue. Jiang Jinjiu closed the grass and added. 2 men. The man and woman thought to themselves, Yin Feng and the others followed Gilkino. They were crawling along the shore of the lake. They weren't much faster than Jiang Jinjiu, who was crawling through the grass. This made it easy for the two of them to follow. The two of them could tell that their group was most likely an escort or follower quest. The NPC would decide where they would go, so they felt more at ease. Gradually, Gilkino's direction became clearer and clearer. He was heading towards a small wooden house by the lakeside. 30 miles away, Jiang Jinjiu and Jiang Jinjiu had also noticed this. However, the small wooden house was not surrounded by such dense weeds, so it was very difficult to hide. The two of them looked around, trying to find a position that was as close as possible. Do you want to sneak over there? You don't know the one tomorrow. There's anti-stealth. Jiang Jinjiu said. Which one? Behind Yin Feng, the one who's always sneakily looking around. Jiang Jinjiu said. A few of Yin Feng's party had gone out to drink and sing. Jiang Jinjiu recognized Yin Feng from 30 miles away, while Jiang Jinjiu recognized the player called Tomorrow. Oh, then let's find a place to take a look. The two of them continued to look around in the underbrush. Suddenly, after pushing aside a clump of grass, they saw a fully armed player hiding in the underbrush. He didn't look like a player who belonged to this world. Players who mingled around the cloud suburb lakeside didn't care about equipment or stats. They only cared about elegance and elegance. This person had clearly heard the commotion behind him. He hurriedly turned around and swung his iron sword in front of him. 30 miles away, Jiang Jinjiu hurriedly pulled him back. The surrounding underbrush rustled as countless blades and arrows pointed out. Who is it? The commotion was too great. Yin Feng and the others noticed the commotion and turned around. All movements stopped in an instant. Jinjiu's body, which was 30 kilometers away, was already covered with weapons. As long as he moved forward slightly, he would be able to send the two of them away. However, the flashing white light of death was no doubt equivalent to telling Yin Feng and the others that something had happened here, so everyone stopped moving. Let's go take a look. Yin Feng pointed at a player. Everyone's faces revealed expressions of panic. However, at that moment, a person in the underbrush put away his weapon and stood up. He held onto a girl's hand and walked out as if no one else was around. Yin Feng and the others understood what was going on. The player who had come to take a look also returned to his team. That was close. Everyone let out a long sigh of relief. However, for Jiang Jinjiu, who was 30 miles away, the danger wasn't over. Just now, Jiang Jinjiu, who was 30 miles away, had pulled Jiang Jinjiu back. After that, the situation had become still. His hand was still tightly gripping Jiang Jinjiu's arm. Jiang Jinjiu very naturally stretched out his right hand and gently stroked the back of the hand that was 30 miles away. 30 miles away, Jiang Jinjiu didn't understand what was going on. He lightly nodded at him and then pulled his hand down, indicating that he was leaving. The surrounding people were stunned. Then, their expressions became strange. In the end, they put away their weapons and even made way for the two of them. Just like that, Jiang Jinjiu led Jiang Jinjiu out of the encirclement. The two of them walked for a distance. Seeing that no one was following them, Jiang Jinjiu, who was 30 miles away, quickly retracted his hand and looked like he was about to vomit. That's right. Jiang Jinjiu nodded in agreement. He took out his half-empty bottle of wine and wet his entire right hand. Then, he took out a lighter and suddenly lit his entire right hand on fire. 30 miles away, Jiang Jinjiu was shocked. However, the flame was extinguished almost immediately. Jiang Jinjiu's expression was calm. Disinfect it. I'd rather die. 30 miles away said. I think so too. However, I'm a bit curious about their intentions. Let's discuss them for a bit. Jiang Jinjiu said. What kind of wine is that? How can it still be lit? The taverns in the game mostly sold red wine and sweet wines. Without a high alcohol content, it wouldn't be lit. I made it myself. Jiang Jinjiu said as he put away the bottle. Did you see those people clearly? I saw them clearly. They were among the colorful clouds. 30 miles away, Jiang Jinjiu recognized their guild emblem. At the same time, he was glad that he and Jiang Jinjiu didn't wear their guild emblems. They were deserters, after all. They had to hide their identities. They seemed to be here for Yin Feng's group. Jiang Jinjiu said. That's strange. Yin Feng's group should be very secretive. How did they receive the news? It seems like they knew beforehand. It seems so. Jiang Jinjiu nodded. The two of them didn't dare to get too close. They obediently crouched in their current position, each peeking out half their heads to look at the small wooden house. They're about to go in. 30 miles away said. Gilgino stepped into the small wooden house. Yin Feng and the others finally let out a sigh of relief. This was a very clear destination. They believed that the NPC wouldn't just take a stroll around the house and then come out to continue on their way. You guys keep an eye on them. Yin Feng casually arranged for a few people to enter the small wooden house. The quest was on him, so of course he had to go in and complete the quest with the NPC. Everything in the house was old and covered in dust. However, there was a table that had been wiped clean. A person was sitting on it, holding a bottle of wine in his hand and staring at Yin Feng. How could it be you? Yin Feng blurted out in shock. He didn't have any relationship with this person, but he knew who he was. Even if those who had been in the Wine and Song Guild couldn't recognize the guild leader, against the current, there was no way they wouldn't recognize this person. The young master of the Han family was simply too outstanding and easy to recognize. I also want to know why it's you. The Han family young master said. The Han family young master recognized Yin Feng. He was the person who had accepted the pit quest. The quest he was leading his team to protect was this person's quest. What are you doing here? Yin Feng didn't know why the other party had come, so he didn't act rashly. The people outside heard his surprised shout and rushed in. When they saw that the Han family young master was sitting in the room, they were all astonished. Only the great NPC could remain calm even if MT Tai collapsed in front of him. Gilgino didn't care about what happened between the players. He walked around the room, then squatted down and grabbed a handful of ashes from the fireplace. After staring blankly for a moment, he regretfully said, "Not good. The blueprints have all been burned." What? Yin Feng turned pale with fright. At this time, he couldn't be bothered with the Han family young master anymore. He immediately rushed over to carry out the quest. How could this be? The Han family young master didn't say anything. He continued to sit at the table and watch as if nothing had happened. Maybe he didn't want to be used by others, so he burned the blueprints. Gilgino said. Then what do we do? Yin Feng asked. Gilgino's eyes shone. After looking around the room, his expression changed. Someone has been here. Everyone looked at the Han family young master. The Han family young master helplessly said, "What are you looking at me for? Don't tell me the quest is referring to me?" Who has been here? Yin Feng asked. Gilgino shook his head. In the end, he only said one sentence. Maybe they took something away. Everyone looked at the Han family young master. The Han family young master jumped off the table and looked back at everyone. Looking at me again? You bunch of idiots, taking something away is your new clue. If you want to continue with the quest, then think of a way to find it. As for the person who took the thing away, it's obviously an enemy. Could it be a friend? So if it's not a new NPC, then it's a hostile player from the city war. Could it be a passerby like me? Thus, Yin Feng and the others asked Gilgino who he was, what he took away, where he went, and so on. However, Gilgino could only answer a few things about what he took away. The Han family young master shook his head and said, what else is there to ask? It's definitely Qianli who got drunk or Sword Demon who took away the thing. Only the player's actions can't be answered by the NPC. If it really was the NPC's quest, wouldn't it tell you where you went? When the others heard this, they felt that it made sense. However, they were still very confused about the Han family young master's appearance here. What are you doing here? I'm waiting for the two people you're looking for. The Han family young master said. They'll come here? The eyes of Yin Feng and the others lit up. The Han family young master swept his gaze over them. With just you guys, what can they do even if they come? Yin Feng smiled. Of course, they were alone, but they could call for help. Skygazer was still waiting for their news. You guys seem pretty confident? There's a backer behind this? You haven't received the news yet, right? The entire guild has been taken down by Qianli, the Han family young master said. What? Yin Feng and the others widened their eyes. You didn't hear wrong. It's the entire guild. On Yunling's side, the archer and thief classes lost more than half of their forces. In the end, they chose to retreat. Their only opponent is Qianli, the Han family young master said. The others looked at each other in dismay. Brat, what's up with you? The Han family young master asked. You're not Skygazer anymore, right? Did you jump ship with a quest? Who bribed you? That's my freedom. Didn't you leave the guild as well? Yin Feng said. That's true. But I didn't go back on my word. I didn't betray the guild for benefits. The Han family young master said with disdain. Don't be so harsh. I sold it to the guild? Yin Feng flew into a rage out of humiliation. You're your own person, but the quest belongs to the guild. Don't forget, you received this quest as a member of the guild. The Han family young master said. That's right, but it's a pity I received it as a member of the guild. Yin Feng said. Don't tell me you're so childish as to use the setting to prove yourself. Do you dare say you discovered the quest after joining the new guild? Remember, I said discovered, not received. The Han family young master said. Yin Feng was speechless. Trash. The Han family young master looked at him in disdain as he walked out of the house. Yin Feng was already gnashing his teeth, but he didn't dare move. As a member of Skygazer, everyone had heard of the Han family young master's abilities. Now that he appeared here without fear, Yin Feng believed that he definitely had some sort of plan. If he thought that he was easy to bully because he was alone, then he was gravely mistaken. Endure. Yin Feng told himself that the quest was more important. If he died here, then the quest would be gone. With this thought, Yin Feng didn't act up. He watched as the Han family young master walked out of the wooden house. Then he heard him shout, Guild Master Gu, there's a quest that's delivered to your doorstep. Do you want to accept it? Fuck. Yin Feng was infuriated. Since the other party already had the intention to do so and had manpower, then he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to keep the quest. Rather than that, he might as well kill the Han family young master first to vent his anger. Yin Feng signaled for everyone to attack with his eyes, but then he saw a person stand up from the grass, carrying a giant sword. He said disdainfully, Forget it, we don't want to get involved in this mess. When Yin Feng heard that there was still a chance, he hurriedly signaled for everyone to not attack. The Han family young master nodded. Then lend me some manpower. Let me take revenge for my old boss. Up to you, Gu Xiaoshang said. Yin Feng almost fainted when he heard this. He hurriedly called for everyone to quickly take down the Han family young master. However, Gu Xiaoshang had already made his stance clear. The Han family young master waved his hand, and countless people stood up from the grass. Arrows and spells were already flying in their direction. Although Yin Feng and the others concentrated their firepower on the Han family young master, he simply waved his staff to heal himself and leisurely walked away. He even took a sip of wine when he had the time. Just like that, Yin Feng and the others left. Countless heads in love poked out from the grass and looked around. Jiang Jinjiu, who was 30 kilometers away, was also watching intently. "Ah, it's the Han family young master," someone said 30 kilometers away. "I saw him," Jiang Jinjiu said. "He joined the Rosy Clouds room?" "I don't know. Why did someone from the Rosy Clouds room come here to steal a quest?" Someone thought 30 kilometers away. "I don't know. Should we notify the guild?" "I don't know. You don't know anything," someone said with disdain 30 kilometers away. Outside the wooden house, the Han family young master saw that the group of people had been cleaned up. He went to the grass and grabbed a random player from the Rosy Clouds room and said, "Let's go take a look at that small wooden house. I highly suspect that there's a quest there." Gu Xiaoshang was on the side and glared at him. "You're not allowed to go. We said we wouldn't do it." "The problem is that no one will believe you even if you don't do it now." "I don't care. This is our principle," Gu Xiaoshang said. "'Kay, it's like this. Just now, I overheard a bit of the conversation between the NPC and them. This quest is most likely related to the quest for Drunk Qianli and Sword Demon, so if we accept it, we'll definitely cross paths with those two. No matter how much they hide, they'll have to face us," Han family young master said. "I don't care. We don't want this kind of quest." Gu Xiaoshang was stubborn. The members of her guild listened to her. Seeing that the guild leader had said this, no one paid any more attention to the Han family young master and they all returned to their original positions. Han family young master was also helpless. "If you don't accept it, someone else will. Then let them come," Gu Xiaoshang said. "How troublesome." Han family young master shook his head and took out his binoculars. He looked in a direction and shouted, "Jiang Jinjiu, come out. I saw your hairstyle." Jiang Jinjiu was depressed. He was about to get up when someone pulled him back from 30 miles away. "Don't fall for it. It's a trick. Big brother, I even called out his name," Jiang Jinjiu said. 30 miles away, he realized that he was an idiot. Helpless, he stood up from the grass with Jiang Jinjiu and walked towards the Han family young master. The people in the colorful clouds who had surrounded the two of them had a strange look on their faces. They started whispering to the people around them, and the people around them looked for the people around them. In a short while, everyone had their eyes on the two of them. Someone whispered, "They're not holding hands." "I'm sorry. That's true. There are so many people." Previously, the two of them had to crawl through the bushes. Cough, really? What happened? Did you run away again? Han family young master had an accurate prediction. "I can't beat them. What else can I do but run away?" Jiang Jinjiu faced it calmly. "You ran so far away. I heard that they fought in Yunling." Han family young master suspected that the information was wrong. "Life lies in movement." Jiang Jinjiu lied. "So you didn't see the details of the battle?" Han family young master asked. The two nodded. "You also sing to the wine?" Han family young master asked from 30 miles away. 30 miles away, he was like a yes man. It was a very strange feeling. Young Master Han wasn't someone who could sing and dance to alcohol. Even if he could, he wouldn't have a position. He was just a commoner, and he was the leader of a small leveling party 30 miles away. But now, he couldn't help but feel that he was inferior. This was the aura. 30 miles away could only think so. Chapter 705. Jiang Jinjiu and the two people who were 30 miles away felt rather uncomfortable. Being surrounded wasn't scary. What was scary was that everyone around them was looking at them as if they were caught in the act. The two of them felt like vomiting. "Why are you guys here?" Jiang Jinjiu asked. "To deal with Qianli and Sword Demon. I got some information from a good friend and found out that those two guys had been here on a mission. That's our only lead at the moment." The good friend that the Han family young master mentioned was naturally Brother Yu. Although brother you didn't know what Gu Fei and Sword Demon had done at Yunjiao Lake, he knew that they had been here on a mission. After the Han family young master got this information, he thought that it was normal for them to run errands in the same place repeatedly according to the rules of the parallel world. Therefore, he brought some people over to wait for them. However, they didn't manage to wait for them. Instead, they heard that Qianli and Drunken Song had fought all the way from the mission pit to the Yunling area. This information strengthened the Han family young master's confidence that Gu Fei was on a mission. He understood the habit of going against the flow, so he would never take the initiative to provoke Gu Fei. At the same time, he also understood Gu Fei's temperament. Although he was so arrogant when it came to killing people, he would never offend others if they didn't offend him. Even if the rules of the game encouraged him to take the initiative to kill the criminals, there had to be some kind of conflict between the two sides for them to fight. A conflict created by the system was undoubtedly the best explanation. Although the Han family young master's deduction wasn't very accurate, the conclusion he came to was very accurate. Gu Fei was indeed on a mission. Therefore, they continued to guard the place while sending people to check out the situation in the Yunling area. Not long after the scouts left, Yin Feng and his group sneakily arrived. The Han family young master had guarded the mission pit before, so he knew Yin Feng and the NPC Gilgino. The moment he saw this group, he concluded that there was a change to Drunken Song's mission. Otherwise, Drunken Song wouldn't have only sent these few people to escort the mission. Even if it was a diversion, there should be some famous Drunken Song players among them. Therefore, the young master of the Han family concluded that Yin Feng had already left the guild and was likely to have been bribed by someone for the sake of the quest he had discovered. The Han family young master hid in the house and observed the group's movements. He pointed out the coordinates so that the ambushers in the grass wouldn't be exposed. Previously, when he discovered that Jiang Jinjiu and 30 Miles had gone out, they had attracted the attention of Yin Feng and the others. After that, each of them had led a girl away to conceal their presence. That was also the reaction of the Han family's young master. See, I knew that Qianli and his group would definitely come to this place again, the Han family young master said to Gu Xiaoshang. That's enough. Let's wait for them to come. Gu Xiaoshang's fighting spirit was high. She didn't like to play around in circles like guild politics, but she felt that ambushing people in the bushes was fair and reasonable. It's a waste not to accept the mission. We're ignoring you. Gu Xiaoshang was a little impatient. She never knew that the Han family young master would be so long-winded. I didn't say you guys should accept the mission, the Han family young master said. He then said to Jiang Jinjiu, go, there's a mission in the house. We're accepting the mission? 30 Miles was overjoyed. He really did love the guild. We're not accepting the mission, we're just cannon fodder. Jiang Jinjiu told 30 Miles not to be happy too early. Don't worry, you won't lose anything if you die, the Han family young master consoled. Everyone knows that we won't lose anything, but if we go up against Qianli, we'll be in a bad mood. Jiang Jinjiu said. 30 Miles nodded. That makes sense, the guild leader's mood must be really bad right now. That's why you guys should accept a big mission to make him happy. 30 Miles, you go. The Han family young master said. It's 30 miles away. 30 Miles was depressed. 300 miles away is fine, go get it. The Han family young master said. But I'll go. 30 miles away, he puffed out his chest and fished out his guild's red heart. You accept the mission and we'll help you complete it. What a beautiful thing. The Han family young master praised his decision. You make it sound better than a song. Using the mission as bait to confirm Qianli's position is the real deal. Jiang Jinjiu said. That's right, so those who don't accept the mission have no value. Come, throw him into the lake. The Han family young master said. Jiang Jinjiu was shocked and wanted to run, but how could he run? After circling around the cloud suburb lake, he didn't find a single NPC. Only this small wooden hut gave off the vibe of a quest. As such, the young master of the Han family paid close attention to this place as soon as he arrived. Just as he had expected, Yin Feng and the others had rushed in this direction after they had appeared. As such, he had already arranged for more than half of his forces to surround the small wooden hut. At this moment, Jiang Jinjiu still wanted to escape. Countless figures stood up and squeezed through the crowd, capturing him alive. You can't be serious. Jiang Jinjiu's face changed. We've known each other for a long time and I always keep my word. If I say I'll throw him into the lake, then I'll throw him into the lake. Throw him, the Han family young master said. The players in the rosy clouds probably hadn't done such a bad thing before, so it was very refreshing. Many people came over to fight for this opportunity. In the end, 4 strong warriors won this opportunity. They grabbed Jiang Jinjiu's arms and legs and carried him to the lakeside. 1, 2, 3, they threw Jiang Jinjiu in an arc, and with a splash, he fell into the lake. He really threw him. Many of the audience, and even many of the people in the rosy clouds, were dumbfounded. The waves on the surface of the lake were still churning, and the shore of the lake was silent. All of a sudden, half a body emerged from the surface of the lake. Wiping the water off his face, he shouted, "Young Master Han, you've got guts. Guard the lakeside, don't let him come up. If he comes up, then throw him back." The Han family young master said. "Sir, I was wrong." Jiang Jinjiu finally gave in. "All right, 300 miles away, go and accept the mission." The Han family young master patted Jiang Jinjiu, who was in a daze, and said with a pleasant expression. This time, Jiang Jinjiu didn't have time to correct his name. He hurriedly ran into the house, and awkwardly leaned out and said, "I've accepted it. The mission says to find the clue." "The clue is definitely on Qianli Drunk or Sword Demon," the Han family young master said. "Are they going to drop the mission items on them?" someone asked. "Don't worry, everyone. Our goal isn't to complete the mission, but to kill these 2. The Han family young master said. Jiang Jinjiu was in tears. Didn't he just say that he would help him complete the mission? How come the goal isn't to complete the mission now? I'm depressed. The Han family young master pointed at him and added, "Look after him, don't let him run. I suggest tying him up." "Fuck, don't stand on ceremony. I'll stay in the house. I won't go anywhere." Alright. Jiang Jinjiu finally witnessed the methods of the Han family young master. He was indeed as cruel and terrifying as the rumors said. "Everyone, continue to wait for orders," the Han family young master said as he entered the small wooden house. This was a very good cover. From the corner of the window, one could observe many directions with binoculars. It was very difficult for people outside to discover that there was someone in the house from afar. The Han family young master entered the house. Jiang Jinjiu shrank into a corner in fear. The Han family young master ignored him. He turned around and saw that Gu Xiaoshang had also entered the house. "Qianli Drunk and Sword Demon will definitely come here," the Han family young master said. "And it's only a matter of time," Gu Xiaoshang said as he looked out the window at Jiang Jinjiu, who was still splashing in the lake. "Are we just going to leave him like that?" "Of course not," the Han family young master said. "That would be too conspicuous. Fish him up, tie him up, and throw him into the bushes. You're too inhumane," Gu Xiaoshang said. She thought that the Han family young master had found his conscience. He really judged people by their appearances. This person's heart and appearance were completely opposite. 300 miles away. How long did it take you to run here from Yunling? The Han family young master asked. "About half an hour. My name is Jiang Jinjiu." Jiang Jinjiu said. "Let's change it. 300 miles is more imposing." The Han family young master said. Next time. Jiang Jinjiu said. "Then have you sent a message to upstream?" The Han family young master asked. "Not yet." Jiang Jinjiu was shocked. "Not yet? Does that mean that's what you're planning to do?" The Han family young master asked. Jiang Jinjiu was speechless. He was indeed considering whether or not to inform the president. "Don't do that," the Han family young master said. "Singing to wine is very powerful. Once we come out, we'll be nervous and our hands will slip. If our hands slip, we'll hit you. If we hit you, you'll die. Once you die, the mission will be gone. In the end, the guild will listen to you and keep coming back and forth, wasting a lot of people's time and energy. That's not good. Do you understand? I understand. But singing to wine. Jiang Jinjiu was afraid that he would spill the beans. Don't worry. I think he's smarter than you. He'll understand it himself. The Han family young master said. That's too despicable. Gu Xiaoshang couldn't stand it anymore. We have no choice. Great President Gu, you guys aren't willing to accept the mission, so we can only catch passers-by to do it. If we don't analyze the pros and cons, the passers-by won't pay attention. The Han family young master said. Forget it. Gu Xiaoshang rolled his eyes. The Yunjiao lakeside temporarily calmed down. At this moment, a certain resurrection camp was bustling with noise and excitement. First, Wang Shida led Soul under the tree and his group to resurrect at the resurrection camp. Although they were all wiped out, he felt great in his heart. He felt that singing to wine didn't see through their plan, so they wouldn't fail the mission. However, very quickly, beneath the tree Wang Tian discovered Lu Yu among the group of people and cursed in his heart. This person had seen through all of their plans and it was truly a huge loophole. But no matter how much they tossed and turned in the game, they couldn't seal their mouths. Wang Shida could only pray in his heart. At the same time, he thought about whether or not he should bribe the other party with benefits. Bribing people with benefits was also a skill. Casually making a move on a stranger was very unethical. Not everyone was greedy at the sight of money. People who were greedy at the sight of money needed different bargaining chips. This was actually an investment. They had to use the smallest amount of investment in exchange for an ideal return. So before giving benefits, it was important to understand the other party's personality, psychology, and needs in order to find the right solution. Using the simplest negative example, giving a warrior a mage's staff was a failure. Even if the staff was worth tens of thousands of gold, it wouldn't be able to move the other party. If it was a heavy sword worth tens of thousands of gold, it was guaranteed that the other party's heart would be moved. Wang Shida was very experienced in this, so he didn't rashly do this. He went up and casually said a few words to Lu Yu. Unexpectedly, he didn't feel any hostility from this person. Wang Shida's heart moved. He casually asked about Lu Yu's position in the guild. Finally, he casually asked if he had any thoughts of changing guilds to come over and develop here. With this question, Lu Yu's face flashed with a hint of awkwardness. Wang Shida's heart moved. After asking, it was true that he had too many guild points, so he couldn't bear to leave. At this point, skyward gazing below the tree was completely relieved. It seemed like Lu Yin was already at odds with the guild and had the intention to leave. Too many guild points had become a burden. Skyward gazing below the tree deduced that Lu Yin was no longer in the mood to report his findings to the guild. Whatever, I'll take a gamble. Wang Shida thought to himself. Giving benefits wasn't a foolproof method. If he gave someone as loyal as Sword Demon, he would directly reject him. If he gave someone as sinister as Han family young master, he would smile and accept it. Then he would use the opportunity to extort him. If he gave someone as loyal as Gu Fei, he would accept it and then kill him. In short, none of them would have a good ending. Thus, giving or not giving was a gamble. Wang Shida observed Lu Yu's condition and felt that there was a chance of him not giving anything. Naturally, he would rather gamble on the chance of getting something for nothing. Wang Shida had an insider in singing wine. At this moment, he was trying to find out about the guild's situation while maintaining contact with Yin Feng. Gradually, he no longer had any doubts. At this moment, the level of Gu Fei and the players from singing to wine continued to rise. Thieves and archers began to appear in Singing to Wine's resurrection camp. This made the players from wandering under the tree extremely happy. Some of these people also recognized that Wang Shida was the guy who stole their quest. They weren't like Lu Yu, who was disheartened and immediately started to fight. The revival camp during the city war was different from the usual revival point. It was only a revival point for players to go offline, but it wasn't a safe zone. This was an extremely fortunate thing for PvP players. They could kill on the spot and revive at the same spot. Then they could catch up and kill again. The only downside was that they didn't suffer any losses. However, the players from Singing Wine only wanted to vent their anger. They didn't care too much and chased after Wang Shida's players. The problem was that Wang Shida's players didn't have their guild emblems on them. Everyone was unfamiliar with each other, so they didn't completely recognize Singing Wine. As a result, they caught a few recognizable players and killed them fiercely. The more they killed, the more familiar they became. Even if Wang Shida's players wanted to escape, they would still be killed. One thing that couldn't be overlooked was that Singing Wine's players were all thieves and archers. Moreover, there were more and more of them. These two classes had no problem catching up to any other class. Kill, kill, kill. Kill, kill, kill. Wang Shida was a bit unlucky. He was recognized and tortured to death. He could be considered a half-baked expert. He had tried to kill the other side, but he couldn't beat the other side in numbers. Wang Shida couldn't help but admit that he didn't expect such a situation. He thought that they would be able to live a carefree life after dying. However, Singing Wine's players had actually sent so many of them back. Wang Shida accepted his fate. He let Singing Wine's players do as they pleased. He continued to communicate with Yin Feng and the others. When he found out that everything was going smoothly, he was greatly comforted. With such a high efficiency, one could die 3 times in a minute if they were lucky. Finally, Wang Shida received a system notification in the guild channel. Player Xiao Xiao has sacrificed herself. She has withdrawn from the city war. Wang Shida was shocked. He didn't know what was going on. He hurriedly contacted Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao had withdrawn from the city war, but she was still there. Moreover, she was still being tortured by Singing Wine's players. She was also at a loss when she received the notification. Could it be that she had been killed too many times? Xiao Xiao was a weak mage. She had been killed cleanly. However, Xiao Xiao was only the beginning. Following that, Wang Shida received the same notification in the guild channel. When he received the notification that the 5th person had sacrificed himself and withdrawn from the city war, Wang Shida, who had died countless times, suddenly discovered that Singing Wine's killing had stopped. Their members had all left the camp and were heading in a certain direction. Rumors also began to spread at this time, from Singing to Wine being beaten back by 1,000 Miles Drunk, to 1,000 Miles Drunk single-handedly destroying the entire Singing to Wine group with a single sword, to even going against the flow and kneeling down to beg for mercy. Gazing Sky had long since learned from his informants that Dancing to Wine was chasing after 1,000 Miles Drunk. Who would have thought that he would be the one killed instead? So all those archers and thieves that had died were all done by 1,000 Miles Drunk alone. Wang Shida was filled with regret. This was a top-tier talent. He should have been more open and friendly with him. Now he had schemed against him. Wang Shida felt like he had made the mistake of throwing away a watermelon while picking up sesame seeds. As for the 5 members of the guild who had withdrawn from the city war, they still didn't know what had happened. Everyone's initial guess was that they had died too many times. If that was the case, then there was a limit to the number of deaths that could occur in the city war. Once the limit was reached, the player would die for good and withdraw from the city war. The problem was that everyone had died in a daze. No one had the heart to count how many times they had died. Crap, how many more times can I die? At this moment, everyone who was still in the city war was thinking about how long they had until their death. Luckily, there's still a quest. Wang Shida comforted himself with this thought. Suddenly, a white light flashed and Yin Feng and the others appeared in front of him. You guys? Wang Shida was speechless. Rosy clouds. I don't know where Rosy Clouds got the news and ambushed us there. Yin Feng said. Impossible. Wang Shida looked at Yin Feng and firmly denied it. That guild Rosy Clouds wouldn't do something like this. What's going on? It's Han Family Young Master. Yin Feng sighed. Child Elite Group's Han Family Young Master? Didn't he withdraw from Singing Wine? But he appeared there with Rosy Clouds. I don't know what he's planning, but he killed us. He said that they were preparing to ambush Qianli Drunk and Sword Demon. Chapter 706. He got rid of you for no reason? Wang Skyward didn't believe it. There was no such thing as hatred for no reason in this world. Yin Feng said helplessly, Han family young master used to be someone who liked to sing and drink. Getting rid of us was as easy as lifting a finger, so... AI, why is this person so troublesome? Wang Skyward wanted to cry. He had calculated from the beginning to the end, but he didn't think that it would all be for naught. Wang Skyward had already given Yin Feng all the benefits he should have. Now that the mission had failed, Yin Feng naturally couldn't take responsibility for it. Wang Skyward had lost everything he had invested. Based on his understanding of Gu Xiaoshang, the guild leader of Rosy Clouds, he knew that the guild wouldn't take this mission. However, he might not have the chance to take it back even if the mission was thrown away. Looking at Wang Skyward, he didn't have many people to begin with. Now, someone had reached the death limit and was kicked out of the city battle. Let's go take a look. Wang Skyward couldn't bear to give up. He gathered his pitiful people and prepared to head towards Yunjiao Lakeside. We'll definitely make a wasted trip, Yin Feng said. You don't need to go. I'll go talk to them. Wang Tianshi said that the mission was already out in the open, and Yin Feng wasn't a necessary member of the mission. To Wang Tianshi, Yin Feng wasn't someone who had any value to him. Moreover, because of his background as a traitor to singing and drinking, Yin Feng would attract the hatred of the Han family's young master. It would be better if he wasn't there. As he headed over, Wang Skyward contacted the spy he had planted in Rosy Clouds to ask about the specific situation of their operation at Yunjiao Lakeside. If the mission was taken by someone from Rosy Clouds, Wang Skyward was prepared to do the same thing as he had done with Yin Feng. This Rosy Clouds was clearly a rather open guild. There were no secrets in the guild. The spy's report was very detailed. Under the tree, he looked up into the sky and listened. As expected, between the Rosy Clouds disdained accepting quests. However, in order to fight for the initiative against 1,000 Miles Drunk and Sword Ghost, young Master Han actually found a random passerby who was drinking and singing and accepted the quest. Wang Skyward was speechless. In his eyes, this person was just a slightly valuable tool in the eyes of others. There's something to talk about. Wang Skyward pondered. He just couldn't figure out if young Master Han was really looking for this passerby for convenience, or was it because of old friendships? If it was the former, there would be more room for negotiation. However, this Han family's young master was rumored to be a difficult person to deal with. Even if there was room for negotiation, looking into the sky felt that he needed to properly deal with him. Perhaps there's no need to talk about it. Beneath the tree, Skyward Gaze suddenly had another thought. If 1,000 Miles Drunk had the ability to single-handedly wipe out the entire Singing for Wine Guild, then Rosy Clouds naturally wouldn't be a problem. Currently, Rosy Clouds' advantage was probably the fact that they were lying in ambush in the dark, as well as the fact that young Master Han, a friend of 1,000 Miles Drunk, knew him well. If he could first get in touch with 1,000 Miles Drunk and leak this information to him, then he could use someone else to do the dirty work and take advantage of the chaos to steal the quest. The more Wang Skyward thought about it, the more he felt that this was a brilliant plan. Drunk Qianli was terrifyingly strong. This could be used. Although Han family young master was familiar with him, Qianli was also familiar with Han family young master. Therefore, as long as he leaked this information to Drunk Qianli, the advantage of familiarity would be mutual. But where could he find Qianli now? Under the tree, he had eyes and ears all over the world. He immediately contacted his own people in drinking and singing, asking them if they had noticed where 1,000 Miles Drunk was going. He's gone. He should be meeting up with Immortal in Flowers. I don't know what he's going to do next. The spy reported. Fuck. Wang Skyward cursed. Finding people was the most painful thing in the game. Eternal life among the flowers. Naturally, he wouldn't waste his manpower to arrange a spy for such an inconspicuous guild. Not to mention, this guild was so unique that it would be hard to find someone among his subordinates who was as wretched as a playboy. The team that was originally heading to Yunjiao Lake stopped halfway. Wang Skyward hesitated. Suddenly, a sharp-eyed subordinate pointed at the road ahead and shouted, "Look who that is!" Everyone looked over. Qianli and two girls were walking in this direction. Wow, it can't be. God is taking care of me? Wang Skyward was excited. However, when he thought about it, he had just set up Qianli's character. If he rushed up excitedly, he wouldn't be killed by the other party, right? At the thought of this, Wang Shida randomly selected 2 of his subordinates and decided to let them negotiate. He only needed to let Thousand Miles Drunk know that there was a trap set up by Yunjiao Lake. There was no need for him to do it himself. When the 2 players heard their guild leader's command, they did not show any fear. After all, they had been tortured by the Drunken Songs players back at the resurrection camp. They had long since become numb to death. Hence, they did not mind dying a second time. Hence, they boldly walked towards Gu Fei's trio. There are 2 people coming. Gu Fei noticed them very quickly. I think they're coming for us. Gu Fei unsheathed his sword. Don't panic. They might have something to say. Strange pupil said. How do you know? Gu Fei asked. I don't think it's just 2 people who want to fight you. Strange pupil said. That makes sense. Gu Fei nodded. At this time, the 2 of them had also arrived in front of the 3. They nodded and bowed as they greeted them, calling them Big Brother Qianli. The people from Seoul under the tree didn't wear their guild badge. Gu Fei didn't recognize the 2 random people. Seeing that they didn't seem to have any ill intentions, he asked, Is there something you 2 need? Oh, we have some news for Brother Qianli. What is it? It has to do with your quest. My quest? Yes, Gil Kino. The 2 said. You are? We are from Seoul under the tree. The 2 said. What are you up to now? Gu Fei immediately suspected that it was a trap. However, there was no need to be afraid of 2 people. The surroundings didn't look like there was an ambush. Not at all. Our quest has already failed. The 2 said. Oh, how did that happen? Sai, the person who received the quest, followed Gilkino's people to Yunjiao Lakeside. In the end, there were other guilds lying in ambush. After we were wiped out, the quest was gone. However, Gilkino is now in a small wooden house. Our guild leader said that since we didn't have the chance to do the quest, he wanted to make it convenient for Brother Qianli. He was going to send you an email. Didn't we bump into you? The 2 had thought of this beforehand. Skyfall was too good at using resources. On one hand, he wanted to use Qianli to kill them. On the other hand, he wanted him to return the favor. I see. Gu Fei said. Thank you. You're welcome. The 2 hurriedly said, We also recognize the other guild. They're from Rosy Clouds. The other person seems to be your friend, the cleric called Han Family Young Master. Oh, I guessed it was them too. Gu Fei said. That's about it. Brother Qianli, be careful. We're leaving. The 2 said. Where are you going? Gu Fei asked. Over there. The 2 didn't have a specific place to go. They couldn't answer for a moment, so they randomly pointed. Over there. Oh, over there. I'll send you there. It's closer to the resurrection camp. After Gu Fei said this, he unsheathed his sword. His eyes flashed. You. What are you doing? Yan Xiaozhu was shocked. Child, you're too naive. They just want to kill you with a borrowed knife. Gu Fei said. Yes, it's obvious. Strange Eye nodded. Actually, under normal circumstances, I don't have the ability to fight against an entire guild. Gu Fei said. What are you hinting at? Strange Eye glanced at him. I'm not talking about your equipment. Even if you have that pair of rings, with this kind of preparation, fighting against 1,000 people is too much of a challenge. The reason we were able to beat back Singing Wine was because of a lot of conditions. There were a lot of mistakes in their leadership. Right now, I'm afraid that the person over there won't make that many mistakes. But the Yunjiao Lakeside is an easy place to make use of. Strange Eye said. Yes, let's talk about it later. The resurrection camp is not far away. Gu Fei, Strange Eye, and Yan Xiaozhu walked on this path because they were already prepared to go offline. Although it was during the city war, Gu Fei was still very restrained. Moreover, he didn't know where to find Gilgino at that time. He only wanted to go offline tomorrow. But now that he received this news, he couldn't help but hesitate. After Wang Skyfall and the others had sent 2 people to engage the enemy, the others had all fled far away. Now that 2 of them had been killed, One of them had even withdrawn from the battle. Wang's Skyfall wiped the sweat off his brow. Fortunately, he had not gone. If he, as the guild leader of his guild, had withdrawn from the battle, he wondered if his entire guild would withdraw from the battle as well. Although he saw through our intention to kill with a borrowed knife, he still had to do this quest. As long as we do this, we'll have a chance to fish in troubled waters. With this thought, Skygazer and the others continued to head towards the Yunjiao lakeside. Along the way, they constantly made arrangements. Gu Fei and the others continued to walk towards the resurrection camp. Seeing the camp in front of them, Strange Eye asked, "Can you also go offline at this camp?" "I don't know. I'll give it a try," Gu Fei said. As enemies, it wasn't too much to not log off at the campsite. Gu Fei was just too lazy to go to the city because it was closer to the campsite. There were many players inside and outside the camp. The guilds that didn't make any moves would choose to set up camp in or around the resurrection camp. It was already very arrogant of Gu Fei to appear here. In reality, quite a few players from other guilds had noticed him, and some had even confirmed his identity. However, the rumors of Gu Fei destroying Singing to Wine were getting more and more frightening. As long as Gu Fei wasn't a threat to them, these players didn't dare to provoke trouble for themselves. They all pretended not to see him. Too arrogant. Strange I couldn't help but say. She regretted coming to this camp with Gu Fei. Now, she and Yan Xiaozhu were exposed. Now that Gu Fei was around, these guild players didn't dare to act rashly. What if Gu Fei wasn't around? Strange I couldn't imagine what kind of treatment she and Yan Xiaozhu, who looked like Gu Fei's helpers, would receive. "We're here." Gu Fei stepped into the resurrection camp. As he spoke to the two of them, he heard a system notification. Successfully occupied enemy camp. Hold for 5 minutes. Camp will be abandoned. What's this? As Gu Fei was studying it, the players around him suddenly became restless. This was because they also received a system notification. Camp 3 has been occupied. Kill the intruder in 5 minutes. Camp successfully defended. Gu Fei walked in under the watchful eyes of the players. The players were not slow to react. When they received the notification, they immediately realized that the intruder was referring to Gu Fei. Gu Fei, on the other hand, was a little confused. This was not the first time he had stepped into the resurrection camp of the attacking side. He was sure that when he entered, there was no notification from the system. At that time, it was the guards from the system who shouted that there was a spy. When he thought of this, Gu Fei looked around. There were no guards. This was the camp that he had caused the misunderstanding. The guards were all killed by the arrogant guild players as they resurrected on the spot. It turned out that after all the guards were killed, the camp would be occupied for 5 minutes. Gu Fei had undoubtedly triggered a new setting. However, at this time, the attackers were already screaming and staring at him. Strange Eye and Yan Xiaozhu were both neutral players. They did not receive any notification. What's wrong? We're going to fight. Log off now. At this crucial moment, Gu Fei shamelessly wanted to log off. However, the system notification said, any damage caused by forcefully logging off will be borne by the player. Are you sure you want to forcefully log off? I can't log off here. Gu Fei's face was covered in tears. In just a short while, some players had already started attacking. The experienced players all realized that capturing the encampment was very likely to affect the outcome of the city war. At this time, how could they still dare to be polite to Gu Fei? As the crowd surged forward, everyone realized that there were so many companions, which dispelled the fear in their hearts. Spells, arrows, and long-range attacks were always the fastest. Teleportation. Gu Fei pointed and teleported. When he looked back, he saw that Strange Eye and Yan Xiaozhu were both flashing with white light. When he looked at his friend list, they were still lit up. It was obvious that they had not been able to log off and had been killed instantly. Players could log off in the city battle camp, but it was not a safe zone. Therefore, logging off here was a skill that could be interrupted. Strange Eye and Yan Xiaozhu had met with this tragedy, but Gu Fei did not have the time to care about them. However, with this movement, Gu Fei was out of the resurrection camp. All the players received a loud notification from the system. Defense successful. Defense successful. Everyone was in a daze. Should they make a move on 1,000 miles drunk? What should they do if they offended this guy? The unity of the players only lasted for a second. When the danger was over, everyone started to think about their own interests again. They started to wonder if they should attack Gu Fei. This moment of hesitation gave Gu Fei a chance. Everything had happened too suddenly, and the players weren't united enough to begin with. It couldn't even be considered an encirclement. Gu Fei dove in as soon as he saw an opening. There were some players who wanted to deal with Gu Fei, but they couldn't catch his movements. The archers and sorcerers could still chase after him and attack him, but in this mess, they would naturally hurt others. It would be fine if they were from their own guilds, but if they hurt people from other guilds, it was inevitable that there would be arguments. Not long after, a few guilds started arguing. The guilds in the city battle were not united at all. Everyone was fighting for their own interests. Unity only appeared for a second when the resurrection camp was about to be destroyed. Of course, Gu Fei could not guess the complicated thoughts of the guild players. He felt that he was about to be surrounded, so he tried his best to escape. In the end, some of the guild players watched calmly. Some secretly hoped that other guilds would attack and then be killed by Qianli in his drunkenness. There were also some who chased after him but accidentally hurt others and turned their aggro. There were so many situations that it was even more useful than when Zhao Yun was told to capture him alive by Cao Cao in Changban. Gu Fei left the resurrection camp without hesitation. He pulled up his friend list and saw that Strange Eye and Yan Xiaozhu were now black. They had just revived and were clearly not seen as targets, so they went offline safely. Now that Gu Fei had escaped, the guild players began to argue amongst themselves. Those who had attacked blamed those who hadn't, those who hadn't attacked blamed those who hadn't, those who hadn't attacked blamed those who hadn't. Those who had been accidentally injured blamed those who had injured others, and those who had injured others blamed those who had been accidentally injured for being narrow-minded. In short, it was a complete mess. Everyone was criticizing each other, and their voices could be heard hundreds of meters away. In this situation, only the big guilds could control the situation. The system notification that the resurrection camp had been conquered was received by all the players from the attacking guilds. Even the guilds who were not at the resurrection camp were very concerned about the situation. When they received the notification that the resurrection camp was successfully defended, everyone heaved a sigh of relief, but they also asked what had happened. I'm afraid it's a setting in the city battle. After asking about the situation, the strategists of the various guilds began to analyze. If all 7 camps have been conquered, where are we going to resurrect after we die? Also, those neutral players are also using these resurrection points. Someone was puzzled. If that's the case, I'm afraid it will be considered that we have failed the siege, and the city battle will end. Everything will return to normal, and we will resurrect back to where we came from, someone deduced. Damn, how did it end up like this? The various guild leaders were very depressed. The siege had not made any progress so far, and their own resurrection camp had actually been counterattacked by the enemy. This made their hearts beat faster. The problem was that there were only 2 known enemies, and they had already caused such a ruckus. If there were a few stronger guilds, what would the situation be like? Also, the guards of the system had always been defending the city. Would they counterattack? If they did, with their tyrannical strength, wouldn't surviving on the resurrection camp for 5 minutes be a piece of cake? Qianli is too much of a scourge. We can't let him be so arrogant. We should work together and suppress this guy. A guild leader suggested. At this time, the guild conference in Cloud City was once again held, and they were discussing the resurrection camp that had almost been conquered. The guild leader who raised this argument in grief and indignation was none other than against the current, the guild leader who had just been humiliatingly beaten into space by 1,000 miles drunk. Chapter 707. The guild leaders looked askance at him. It would not have been strange if anyone had suggested this, but it had to be someone who suggested it with righteous indignation. Everyone's mood was a little strange. They could not help but feel like they were being used, and they immediately felt very resistant. Below, the Tree Souls Guild leader, Skyward Tree, was aware of a setting that the other guilds did not know about, and that was that there was a death limit for players who participated in the city war. Once they died a certain number of times, they would not only be grounded in the resurrection camp, but they would also be completely eliminated from the city war. Skyward Tree knew that these guild leaders were hesitant to chase after Qianli's drunken. A large part of the reason was that they felt that even if they killed him, so what? After killing him, he would resurrect, and whoever came out to kill him would get revenge. When faced with Qianli's drunken, everyone became cowardly, hoping for good luck to take care of them. As long as Qianli's drunken's aggro target was not them, and as for causing trouble for other guilds, most of them were probably secretly happy. For example, when Unhindered 4Cs was messed with, Singing to Wine was definitely very happy. Now that Singing to Wine was killed, Skyward Tree noticed that Unsworn Sword was in a good mood. If he revealed this setting that he knew, it would definitely be a cardiac stimulant to the other guilds. When everyone knew that as long as they killed Qianli's drunken a few times, they would be able to kick him out of the city war, they might really unite. However, the problem was that Skyward Tree did not want Qianli to quit after getting drunk. He was still hoping that Qianli would cause a ruckus at the Cloud Suburb Lake while he waited for the opportunity to get that quest back. Although the Skygazing Guild was small, it had great ambitions. Moreover, he had no place to speak at this time. His guild was so small, and there were hundreds of guild leaders at this time. He was at the bottom of the list. If it wasn't for his wide network, he might not even have received this news. Although he was here now, the guild leaders of small guilds like him were basically spectators at this time. They just had to wait for the big guilds to make a decision and decide whether or not they wanted to carry it out together. In terms of speaking rights, they didn't even have as much say as the core members of the big guilds other than the guild leaders. As one of the 5 guild leaders of level 6 guilds, Gu Xiaoshang was, of course, specially invited. When he heard that everyone was talking about dealing with Qianli's drunken and saw that most of them were cowering, he could not help but feel angry. He stood up and glared at everyone. Isn't it just chasing after Qianli's drunken? Our guild has been chasing after him. If you want to kill him, then come with me. What's the point of having a meeting? When Time Reflection saw that Gu Xiaoshang had stepped out to speak, he immediately felt that things were going to be bad. As expected, Unsworn Sword also stepped out and said solemnly, "That's right. Qianli's drunken is the defending side, and there's no doubt that he's an enemy. Do we even need a meeting to discuss whether or not to kill him? What a joke. Reigning 4Cs has nothing to say. If we see him, we definitely won't let him go." "Huh, is it you guys who won't let Qianli's drunken go, or is it Qianli who won't let you guys go?" A mocking voice came from somewhere in the crowd. "Who is it?" Unsworn Sword roared. These words were undoubtedly poking at his scars. Guild leader Unsworn. At this moment, Countercurrent actually stepped forward and patted Unsworn Sword, a look of understanding in his eyes. He felt like the fox mourning the death of a rabbit. Right now, just like Reigning 4Cs, he had suffered a huge setback. 1,000 people couldn't even beat Qianli's drunken. Moreover, his situation was even more tragic than Unsworn Sword's. At the very least, Reigning 4Cs still had the environment of catapults and the like in city battles, while they were truly fighting 1-on-1 against 1,000. Although a mistake in their tactical arrangements allowed Qianli's drunken to take advantage of a loophole, this kind of explanation was untenable. Moreover, their defeat magnified the terror of Qianli's drunken. In any case, it was all negative effects. Everyone knows what happened between us and Qianli. We lost, I have nothing to say, but I hope everyone can understand that Qianli's drunken isn't as scary as everyone thinks it is. Our defeat was due to a mistake in our tactics. All this while, we have grasped an important piece of information, and that is that Qianli's drunken is quite lacking in mana. After many observations in actual combat, we can see that his mana output is 4 dual flame flash or AoE spells, followed by a fireball or lightning spell. We originally planned to swarm him after exhausting his mana, but we didn't expect that his mana problem had already been solved. Our miscalculation was ruthlessly dealt a heavy blow by him, and the 2 major classes, thieves and archers, suffered heavy losses. Those who are familiar with Qianli's Drunken know that these two classes are absolutely necessary to deal with Qianli's Drunken. We lost the effective support of these two classes, so we chose to retreat. Right now, there are rumors out there saying that our guild's 1,000 people were wiped out by Qianli's Drunken. It's not like no one saw the Battle of Cloud Ridge. As for what the truth is, everyone can go and inquire. Qianli's Drunken is very difficult to deal with, but as long as we unite as one and attack as a group, hundreds of thousands of people are afraid of one person. Don't you all feel ashamed? Go against the current, I believe your words, but the problem is, I heard that Qianli's Drunken is a cunning and cruel person who will seek revenge for the smallest grievance. To be honest, I don't know what the other guild leaders are thinking, but I am quite afraid of his revenge in the future. It's fine if it's the city war now, at worst, we won't get any points because of him, but what if his revenge continues in the future? In the future, if he sees any of your guild members in Cloud City and kills them, what should we do? In the future, we will all move together in a game with hundreds of thousands of people? That's impossible, right? We are a small guild with a total of 50 people, and even if we all gather together, I'm afraid we won't be able to do anything to him. When that time comes, who will protect us? This young president spoke out the thoughts of many other presidents. At that time, they would have to worry about this killer coming out to cause trouble every day. How would they be able to continue the game? However, when Upstream heard this, he laughed. However, before he could say anything, someone squeezed out of the crowd and said angrily, "Bullshit, is Qianli that kind of person?" Everyone looked over. Slender Waist Dance, the colleague of reborn Amethyst Qianli, was said to be his good friend. There were also some rumors that said that she was Drunken Qianli's mistress, and that Drunken Qianli's gorgeous equipment was evidence of him being a mistress. Slender Waist Dance squeezed out to speak for Gu Fei, and behind her was July. She was naturally much more stable than Slender Waist Dance. Seeing that everyone was staring at her in shock, she slowly said, "Everyone," as guild leader Upstream said, "many things are actually just misunderstandings and rumors. Qianli is a member of our guild, and we are very familiar with him. This kind of thing that you are worried about will not happen." Upstream hurriedly laughed and chimed in, "Everyone heard that, right? I was just about to say that 1,000-Mile Drunkard's character was reliable. Right now, it's nothing more than a confrontation set by the system. There are no personal grudges, and it will attract revenge in the future. If there are still guilds that are worried, you can take off your guild badge and cover your face. That way, you won't have to worry about exposing your identity." When everyone heard this, they felt that this idea was reasonable, and the voices of agreement suddenly increased. When Slender Waist Dance heard this reaction, she scratched her head and said, July, what did we do?" July smiled bitterly. "We proved Qianli's character, so everyone has nothing to worry about, and is ready to unite and kill Qianli." "Is that so? That's great, I'll let this brat be arrogant again." Slender Waist Dance was furious. This city war was very painful for the guild players. Even Slender Waist Dance had died 3 times. On the other hand, Qianli, when he got drunk, left the guild and became a city defender. He seemed to be having fun, coming and going, and becoming a disaster for the guild players. Slender Waist Dance had always been competitive with Gu Fei, and now that she felt that she wasn't as glorious as he was, she didn't feel good about it. Sigh, Amethyst probably won't be able to get any points in this city war. Why don't we see what Qianli can do as a city defender? July said, "That won't do. Manners, we can't go easy on him." Slender Waist Dance said, "Isn't there no one going easy on him now?" July looked around. Compared to her and Slender Waist Dance's attempt to prove Gu Fei's character, against the current's idea of wearing a mask and badge was much more considerate. Many guild leaders passed down orders to remove their masks and badges, preparing to hunt down Gu Fei. Against the current felt that he had once again led the crowd, and was quite happy. He continued with his important speech, "Everyone, let's come to an agreement on how to deal with Qianli's Drunken. As long as you see him, no matter if it's a big guild or a small guild, you must attack him with all your might. Those who are strong enough, kill him on the spot. Those who aren't strong enough, Do your best to stall for time until reinforcements arrive. All guilds must provide reinforcements when they receive reports of Qianli's drunken's movements. With this kind of collective action, do you think Qianli's drunken is just one person? That's right. The crowd cheered. All right, I think everyone is very clear about the characteristics of Qianli's drunken. From now on, if you see Qianli's drunken, immediately notify all guilds. Against the current announced. Only the guild leaders had come to participate in the gathering. The guild members were still scattered all around Cloud City. At this moment, the guild leaders who had come to participate in the meeting passed on the spirit of the meeting. In an instant, there were hundreds of thousands of eyes looking for Gu Fei. Practically in the next moment, in the four directions of north, south, east, west, north, and south, there were a total of 23 people suspected to be 1,000 miles drunk. Black robes weren't a unique equipment. Although many mages in Cloud City didn't dare to wear them for fear of being misunderstood, it wasn't an absolute rule. As for the night streamer, it was a relatively small target. If you weren't close enough, you wouldn't be able to see it. Moreover, Gu Fei didn't necessarily need to carry the sword around. He had a pocket. The guild leaders who received the report were sweating profusely. Against the current's brain worked quickly. He immediately said, "Everyone, why don't we give an order for all the mages in our guilds to not wear black robes, even if they are naked?" That's a good idea. The guild leaders praised and immediately gave the order. Another person suggested, "Why don't the other classes change their equipment as much as possible? Let's make it so that if there's anyone wearing black around Cloud City, we'll know that he's Qianli's drunken." Good idea. Everyone praised and continued to give the order. Thus, the entire guild was united. Those with equipment changed their equipment, and those without took off their equipment. In an instant, the players with black equipment took off their black clothes in all four directions of Cloud City. Gu Fei was hesitating in the crowd. He was considering whether to go back to the city and log off, or to continue observing the quest at Cloud Suburb Lake. Suddenly, he noticed that the players around him were behaving strangely. They all took off their guild badges and looked for a cloth to cover their faces. After a while, many suspicious gazes floated around his body, and then suddenly, many people started to take off their clothes. What's wrong? Just as Gu Fei was feeling lost, many people had already finished taking off their clothes. Thus, he suddenly became the center of attention. How fast was Gu Fei's reaction? Recalling the people who had just taken off their black clothes, he immediately realized that this was a very targeted activity. Thus, very calmly, Gu Fei also took off his clothes. At this time, Gu Xiaoshang was also broadcasting the live broadcast of the meeting to her guild between rosy clouds. At the same time, she was also revealing the situation here to the Han family young master. Just as she mentioned the series of wonderful ideas here, she received a reply from the Han family young master. "Ha ha ha ha. What's wrong?" Gu Xiaoshang asked. "Changing to black equipment, this idea is really cute. But what's the use? They even took off their badges and covered their faces. When Qianli gets drunk, he will also take off his clothes and cover his face. When he gets drunk, he will swagger in front of you and chop your guild leaders to death." The Han family young master's reaction was very fast, but the guild leaders were not so slow. Many of them were immersed in the joy of this collective action. Finally, someone reacted to this step. If Qianli gets drunk and takes off his equipment and covers his face, won't we never be able to recognize him? Even the person who came up with the idea realized the seriousness of the problem and immediately stopped. "Everyone, Qianli will continue to take revenge after getting drunk. Just now, the familiar face of Amethyst Qianli has helped us to dispel our doubts. I suggest that everyone wear their guild badges. This is our main identification tool. If anyone doesn't wear their badge, we will kill them. What do you think?" Against the current said. The surroundings were silent again. This time, the suggestion to go against the current did not receive any positive responses. There were only a few voices, and when they saw that the others were silent, the few voices also instantly disappeared. How is it? On the other side, The Han family young master continued to ask Gu Xiaoshang about the situation of the meeting. Against the current suggested using badges as identification, but no one said anything. Gu Xiaoshang said. The Han family young master laughed coldly. I already knew that we shouldn't have any expectations for these people. Before their own interests are protected, they won't be willing to do anything. Aren't they selfish to the point of despair? Embark. Gu Xiaoshang replied. In the middle of the meeting, she stood up once again. This time, there was no anger on her face. She was as calm as the surface of a lake. I'm leaving. Xiaoshang, where are you going? Unsworn Sword asked in surprise. To kill Qianli drunk. Gu Xiaoshang said. But we haven't even discussed this yet. Unsworn Sword said. Gu Xiaoshang looked at everyone in disdain and said, discuss my ass, before floating away. Everyone's faces were filled with black lines. Many of them stared at Unsworn Sword and thought to themselves, what kind of girl did you have your eyes on? Unsworn Sword felt gloomy. He felt that he was definitely not as useless as the people around him, but now he seemed to be treated equally by Gu Xiaoshang. How could he accept this? Unsworn Sword glared at his surroundings. Those who wear badges will be marked. Those who don't wear badges will be killed. That's settled. I've already spoken to everyone here. If anyone was killed by mistake without a badge, don't come out and complain. In 5 minutes, my guild will give the order to kill anyone without a badge, especially mages. Unsworn Sword said. That goes for us too. Against the current stood up and stood next to Unsworn Sword. With the 2 guild leaders expressing their stance, many of the guild leaders began to move again. They observed the reactions of the people around them. At this time, some of the smaller guilds that were on good terms with reigning the 4 seas and against the current also stood out to express their support. However, there were 5 rank 6 guilds in total. Gu Xiaoshang had left first. Uncheng Mutsu and Black Index Finger were still there, but they had yet to express their stance. Unsworn Sword and Against the Current were both looking at them. Black Index Finger sighed and stood out. Guild leaders, you suffered at the hands of Qianli drunk. Must you vent your anger on us? What did you say? The 2 were startled. They did not expect Black Index Finger to say something like that. To be honest, I've had dealings with Qianli drunk before. I think the reincarnated amethyst said that he's a good person? Hee. To be honest, everyone here would put up a good front in front of a beautiful woman. Based on my impression of Qianli drunk, I don't believe that he's a good person. I think he'll take revenge. So, for the sake of my guild brothers, I have to be careful. You can call me cowardly or afraid. I don't care. Anyway, I'm fine with you if you want to bring your badge, but we won't be accompanying you in attacking Qianli drunk. Black Index Finger said. Fuck me, Black Index Finger, you're a motherfucker. Unsworn Sword said angrily. Guild leader Unsworn, if you have the balls, then don't try to rope in so many people. Just lead your guild to get drunk with Qianli drunk. Black Index Finger said. Did I not fucking look for him? Unsworn Sword said angrily. Yes, you did. Guild leader Countercurrent did too. It was very meaningful. From now on, the 2 of you don't have to fight over who is the strongest guild in Cloud City. Without a doubt, reincarnated Amethyst Drunk will not be able to surpass you. Black Index Finger said. Fuck me. Unsworn Sword was truly enraged. He unsheathed his sword and attacked Black Index Finger, but Black Index Finger was already prepared for this. He raised his sword to block and took a few steps back. Unsworn Sword wanted to chase after him, but Black Index Finger's side already had people following him. Unsworn Sword's brothers immediately followed. Let's go. Black Index Finger had no intention of fighting Unsworn Sword. With a single sentence, he turned around and left. Even the level 6 guild, Black Alliance, had retreated. The guild leaders who were worried immediately saw a perfect plan. That's right, I'll wear the badge, but I won't participate in the hunt. This way, neither side will be able to find me. That's it. And so, the second joint operation of the guilds in Cloud City was declared bankrupt during the negotiation. Chapter 708. They gathered quickly, but they dispersed even faster. Both Unsworn Sword and Against the Current didn't think that a few words from Black Index Finger would cause most of the hundreds of guilds to leave. Before they left, they all came over and said, "We'll wear the badge, but don't count us in when it comes to killing Qianli." What the hell is Black Index Finger doing? Unsworn Sword slashed a small tree in anger. It looks like he's waiting for us to make a fool out of ourselves. Against the Current said, "I really hope that Qianli gets a quest that targets him. Let's see if he still dares to say that." Unsworn Sword said. Sigh. Against the Current sighed deeply. It was rare that he felt the same way as Unsworn Sword. Looking around, the remaining guilds all had good relationships with the two guilds. Actually, everyone had a tacit understanding as to what kind of relationship they had. These guilds were actually created by the support of both Against the Four Seas and Singing for Wine. Since the two guilds had reached the maximum number of members, there was still an endless amount of talent waiting for them to plunder in the main city. Of course, kicking people and adding people every day wasn't an option. Thus, they established these small guilds with some experts. Once Against the Four Seas and Singing for Wine leveled up, they would immediately be added to the main guilds. There were also a few newbies in the small guilds. Since they saw that the game was crazy and had a lot of potential, they didn't mind nurturing them from a young age. The guild leaders of these small guilds were basically reliable people sent by the two guilds. Of course, they would stand with the two guilds at this time. The players in the small guilds also knew that their own guilds were, to put it bluntly, the reserve army of Against the Four Seas and Singing for Wine. Since they had no chance of joining these two big guilds, becoming a reserve army was better than randomly joining a trash guild. Thus, they all acknowledged their status. At this time, the two guild leaders saw that other than their own reserve army, there was no extra guild. Thus, the two were filled with righteous indignation and cursed the selfishness of these people. Ever since the establishment of Against the Four Seas and Singing for Wine in Cloud City, these two had never truly communicated with each other like today. After all this time, we still have to do it ourselves. Xiaoshang has been chasing us for so long, I wonder if there are any clues. Let me ask him. Unsworn Sword would not let go of any opportunity to interact with Gu Xiaoshang. Countercurrent really wanted to mock him. He was the guild leader of such a big guild, but he lost his sense of propriety the moment he met Gu Xiaoshang. He might be happy about it, but he had to think about his brothers. Against the Current really wanted to laugh at him. Against the Current, he didn't understand. Gil didn't feel embarrassed every time Unsworn Gu against Gu Xiaoshang. Countercurrent felt that Unsworn Sword's reputation as the guild leader of Unsworn Sword was more than enough to sweep the floor. However, at this time, Unsworn Sword was busy trying to contact Gu Xiaoshang. Countercurrent looked to his left and right and saw that Feng Xing, Time's Reflection, and the others all looked as if they were used to this. So they're already used to it? Damn, how did they get through this? Against the Current sighed in admiration. He was a guild leader who cared a lot about his image and reputation. In any case, Unsworn Sword would never do something like this. So, he really couldn't understand how Unsworn Sword managed to lead Against the Four Seas to where it was now, and even better than his Singing for Wine. As a warrior, Gu Xiaoshang didn't walk too quickly. Along the way, he received a message from Unsworn Sword, asking if there were any clues about Qianli's drunk. You also need clues? Gu Xiaoshang asked curiously. Of course. Unsworn Sword said. Did you forget? Qianli's drunk still has a quest to kill you. You don't need to look for him. He'll come looking for you sooner or later. Gu Xiaoshang said. But that. Unsworn Sword had really forgotten about this. So, it's hard to say whether he'll come to our side or yours. Gu Xiaoshang said. So, let's gather together. That way, we won't lose anything. Unsworn Sword tried his best. Oh, we're at Cloud Suburb Lakeside. Gu Xiaoshang said. Cloud Suburb Lakeside. Unsworn Sword was excited. That was a holy land. His biggest dream was to hold Gu Xiaoshang's hand and stroll along Cloud Suburb Lakeside. He didn't think that the opportunity would come so quickly. He wasn't prepared at all. Unsworn Sword's excited expression quickly showed on his face. Reflection of time, against the current, and the others all looked at him. Windwalker was a straightforward person, so he asked, "What are you so happy about?" Cloud's suburb lakeside, holding hands with little Shang. "Oh no, joining hands?" Unsworn Sword said excitedly. "Why are we going there?" Everyone was confused. That place was far away from the battlefield. Probably because the environment is good? Unsworn Sword was almost drooling. His thoughts were completely different from everyone else's. Reflection of time, and the others rolled their eyes. As for Gu Fei, when he realized that all the players in the city had started to target him, and even changed his equipment to become Black Cloak in order to isolate him, he happily took off his equipment and continued to blend into the sea of people. However, this situation didn't last for a few minutes. Not long after, everyone changed their equipment again. More importantly, they carefully put on their guild badges. "Brother, which guild are you from?" A kind-hearted player saw Gu Fei in a daze and came over to talk to him. Gu Fei looked at him. "Hurry up and put on your badge. You're a mage. If you don't put on your badge, you'll be mistaken for Qianli drunk. You won't even be able to complain if you die." The other person said, "I'm Qianli drunk." Gu Fei said. The other person stared blankly at Gu Fei. His hand that was in the middle of putting on his guild badge stopped. After a while, he softly said, "Big brother, what big brother?" Gu Fei was going crazy. The other person didn't say anything. Slowly, step by step, he retreated, his eyes still fixed on Gu Fei. Gu Fei caught up with him in 2 steps and asked, "Let me ask you, one moment they take off their equipment, the next moment they put it back on, and the other moment they don't wear their badges and they're Qianli drunk. What's going on?" "This has nothing to do with me," the other person said anxiously. "I know, I'm just asking," Gu Fei hurriedly said. "It's all what Unhindered and Singing Wine and the other big guilds want. They want us to go against you. We won't do it, but they still want us to cooperate. One moment they want us to take off our equipment, the next moment they want us to wear our badges. I think it's all to find you," the other person said. "These people are so strange," Gu Fei said. "When I was fighting with drinking and singing, they were the ones who ran away. Why are they looking for me now? That's weird." "This has nothing to do with us, really," the other person said. I know. "What's your name?" Gu Fei said. "I'm called Little Bottle Cap. I'm here to buy soy sauce," the other person said. Little Bottle Cap? Gu Fei was shocked. He said, "Wait a moment." At the same time, he hurriedly sent a message to Sword Demon. "Did you give up on the quest?" "I gave up." "What's wrong?" "It's a tragedy." "I met Little Bottle Cap," Gu Fei said. "Fuck." Even a kind person like Sword Demon couldn't stand it anymore. "How did you meet him?" "I just randomly met him on the road." "AI, you're really unlucky." Gu Fei said. "I give up." Sword Demon also accepted his tragic fate. "What are you doing?" "There'll be a new quest after I give up on it." "I'm waiting." Sword Demon said. "Aren't you going offline?" "Oh right. Did you receive the system notification just now?" Gu Fei asked. "System notification? The one that attacked what camp?" Sword Demon asked. "Did you see it?" Gu Fei said. Did something happen again, I think?" "What? It's me." Gu Fei said. "Didn't I go offline with Strange Pupil and Xiaozhu just now? I just entered the resurrection camp and this notification appeared." Gu Fei said. "We can't go offline at the camp outside." Wait. You said you attacked the resurrection camp the moment you stepped into it? That shouldn't be. We've been to the camp before. Why didn't we get this notification?" Sword Demon asked. "Do you think it's because of the guards?" Gu Fei asked. "That makes sense." The guards were all wiped out and the camp was occupied. According to the previous notification, as long as we survive for 5 minutes, the camp will be destroyed. Sword Demon thought. Even neutral players are using the resurrection points outside. If all 7 of them are destroyed, how are so many people going to go offline? But Gu Fei was a professional now. He could even say that it was a bug. If they're all occupied, then the defenders will probably win, right? Is this the standard for winning a city war? Sword Demon was excited. That must be. Gu Fei also reacted. I can try. If I go into stealth, maybe no one will notice me for 5 minutes? Sword Demon said. That makes sense. I'm too conspicuous now. I heard that raining the 4 seas and singing to wine and the others will treat any mage who doesn't wear a badge as me and kill them. Gu Fei said. Not wearing a badge? Guild badge? You also have that thing. The Sword Ghost said. Yeah, that's why I'm also curious. I'm hesitating whether or not to wear it. No one will kill me if I wear it. Won't I be lonely? Gu Fei said. I'll go take a look outside. Which camp did you go to? Sword Demon didn't want to accompany Gu Fei and be lonely. He felt that he hadn't reached that level yet. It was better to just play the game. The one in the north. Gu Fei said. Okay, I'll go take a look. After the ruckus we caused, it seems like there aren't many NPCs left in the northeast camp, right? Gu Fei said. I don't know. I didn't turn around to look. Sword Demon said. Brother you? Tell brother you to go take a look. Gu Fei said. I still can't open the private chat. Sword Demon sighed. I can't use the mercenary channel. It's too revealing. Gu Fei said. Of course. I'll go take a look myself. Gu Fei said. Then be careful. Sword Demon said. Who knows who'll be the one to be careful? Gu Fei said. Raining the 4 seas, singing for wine, and their vassal guilds marched majestically towards Yunjiao Lakeside. Gu Fei and Sword Ghoul, on the other hand, were sneaking towards the 2 resurrection camps. The resurrection camp was in danger of being taken over. This setting should have alerted the guild players, but because they only cared about their own interests and weren't united, no one brought it up as a topic of discussion after that incident. After discussing the issue of Qianli's drunkenness, everyone went their own way. This setting that once caused everyone to panic didn't attract the attention it deserved. Sword Demon had always been the most patient. To be cautious, he activated stealth as soon as he exited the north gate and slowly moved towards the resurrection camp in the north. Gu Fei was still as arrogant as ever. He changed his equipment and didn't even wear his badge. He wanted to crawl on the road. The passers-by all avoided him. Their fear of Gu Fei had been pushed to the peak. The closer they were to a team, the more afraid they were. Gu Fei thought that there would be people who would draw their swords at him on the way, but there was none. None at all. Everyone who could recognize him avoided his gaze. Those who really wanted to kill Gu Fei had all run to the Yunjiao Lake. Gu Fei did not know about this, so he ignored everything and took the shortest route to the northeast camp. The sword specter who was stealthily following him saw how arrogant and despotic this guy was, and it was full of admiration. Gu Fei was fast and arrived at the northeast camp first. He walked around and didn't see any system guards. But as soon as he entered, he heard a familiar roar, "There's a spy." Gu Fei looked around and still didn't see any system guards. This was where the system was shameless. It discovered the player's existence from its omniscient view. There were many players in the resurrection camp. Gu Fei didn't hide his arrogance at all, so everyone was watching him. Now that he had openly entered their territory, the system was furious. The players looked at each other and didn't know whether they should go forward or not. Throughout the day, because of this Qianli, the guild's orders were constantly changing. Such a high degree of importance brought about a high degree of caution. Now that Gu Fei had set foot in their camp, the system had already notified them, but the players still chose to wait and see. Gu Fei waited for a long time and finally saw the system guards charge out. How pitiful! Such a large resurrection camp, but there were only 4 system guards left. The rest had been killed by Gu Fei and the Sword Demon. When the players saw the system guards attack, they were quite happy. This way they could just watch the show. If the system attacked you, it wouldn't be blamed on the other guilds, right? The city guards guarding the resurrection point were much weaker than the city guards that were responsible for maintaining law and order. They were basically on par with the city guards defending the city. To the current players, it would be difficult but not impossible. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be able to fight the city war. Against an opponent that could only be defeated by normal players in a group fight, Gu Fei naturally could take it on alone. However, there were 4 system guards in front of him. Gu Fei went up to test his sword and felt that the situation wasn't looking good. The system guards weren't strong, but they had a lot of HP. Gu Fei could only slowly whittle them down. However, the players around him were all enemies. If he didn't move now, who knew when they would all charge at him? If that happened, his efforts would be in vain. Gu Fei didn't want to do such a useless thing, so he fainted a few times and ran out. The guild players were still watching in a daze. The system guards bravely chased after him. Gu Fei tried to lure the 4 guards away, but after running more than 10 meters out of the camp, the system guards stopped and returned to their posts. I can't lure them out," Gu Fei said in a self-deprecating manner when he saw that many people were looking at him. The players didn't know what to say. What was going on? This person was an enemy, an enemy, an enemy. But why were we just watching? Watching him play around with our NPCs in front of us? What kind of logic was this? Thinking of this, a few hot-blooded heroes could no longer hold back and suddenly attacked. Gu Fei did not hold back and happily counterattacked. As the flames swept past, a few people lost their lives. The others who were ready to make a move immediately stopped. Even more people rejoiced inwardly, "Luckily I didn't attack." Gu Fei looked left and right. No one came up to attack. The 4 guards couldn't think of a way to deal with them either. After thinking for a moment, they turned around and headed north of the resurrection camp. Sword Ghost dragged his feet and finally arrived at his destination. Originally, many large guilds had set up camp in the northern camp. Now, however, none of the large guilds had set up camp here. Suddenly, the northern camp seemed a lot thinner. Sword Demon carefully walked through the crowd in stealth. When he found that no one noticed his presence, he gradually relaxed. The camp was right in front of him. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Sword Demon stepped forward. System notification: successfully occupied enemy camp. Hold for 5 minutes. Camp will be abandoned. The complimentary notifications naturally appeared in the system notifications for the players who were attacking the city. The players from Reigning the 4 Seas were halfway to the Cloud Suburb Lake. When they received the notification, they immediately realized that Qianli was planning to attack their resurrection camp. How could they have forgotten about such a big loophole? For a moment, the guild channel was filled with screams and screams. Some people even wanted to run back to the guild. Only 5 minutes left. I can't make it in time. Against the current side. Who's there? Sort of unsworn asked. Who knows? Reflection of time shrugged. There really wasn't anyone at the camp in the north. The 2 big guilds had left. Black Index Finger had left with his people. Unshang Mutsu hadn't been stationed here in the first place. There really wasn't a guild in charge here. When they suddenly heard the system notification, everyone was shocked and searched the camp in a panic. This time was different from the last time. Last time, Gu Fei openly walked into the camp. No one paid attention to him and only focused on him. When the system notification appeared, it was like an order to attack. Everyone immediately opened fire. This time, everyone ran around, but they couldn't find this figure. Sword Demon was depressed. Very depressed. The moment he entered the camp and the system notification appeared, his stealth state disappeared. It was obviously a forced setting by the system to not allow this kind of hide-and-seek method to occupy the camp. But the problem was that Sword Demon was standing at the edge of the camp. No one paid attention to him. Countless players came in and out of his side. No one even looked at him for a second. In everyone's mind, there was only the figure in the black robe. Sword Demon had a taste of being a passerby. 3 mages in the same black robe were killed as a precaution. But the system warning still didn't go off. Every minute, the system would give a notification. At the last minute, it actually started a 60-second countdown. Sword Demon was still standing at the edge of the camp, counting down the seconds with the system. Butterfly Knot. Well, let me make an announcement again. Yesterday's chapter number and name were wrong. The content has been changed. It doesn't affect reading. Chapter 709. All the players in Cloud City were going crazy. The 60-second countdown was like a needle poking at their hearts. The big guilds like Unhindered and Wine and Song were too far away to help. They learned about the development of the situation through effective channels, but they couldn't find the target. The players were furious. Players who were used to traditional games couldn't stand this situation. The enemy didn't have a red name notification, nor was there a notification that he could be killed. It all depended on the player's eyes to judge. Qianli drunk, we haven't seen this person before, how do we know if he's a human or a dog? Countless people thought so in grief and indignation, but it was to no avail. 7 mages wearing black robes had been mistakenly killed, and the players were at their wits' end. They were basically trying any doctor they could find in a desperate situation. There's still 30 seconds left, and still no one cares about me. Sword Demon continued to be sad. In fact, he was also wearing a black robe. In fact, he didn't have a guild badge. In fact, he had been standing still. These were all suspicious characteristics, but the problem was that he wasn't a mage. Under Qianli Drunk's halo, Sword Demon had to become invisible and was ignored by the players. At this moment, some knowledgeable person finally remembered that among the non-attacking players, besides Qianli Drunk, there was also a Sword Demon. Sword Demon, thief. As soon as they thought of this class, everyone shouted, "Where's the anti-stealth? Anti-stealth, come out! The target is likely to be in stealth." This was a classic example of being too smart for one's own good. The sword ghost was speechless. Seeing these people busying about, he had the urge to introduce himself, but he held himself back. He felt that doing so would be too lowly. There's still 20 seconds. Sword Demon thought. At this point, I'll deliberately act like I'm going to waste these 20 seconds. So Sword Demon no longer stood there foolishly as a target. Like a player looking for a target, he began to run. 10 more seconds. After the Sword Demon counted to 10 more seconds, he suddenly bumped into a player while running around. Sword Demon didn't pay attention to him. He went around and wanted to leave, but that person suddenly chased after him. "Wait, which guild are you from? Where's your badge?" Sword Demon was excited. Had someone finally noticed him? It was already a countdown of 10 seconds. He could finally show off a little, instead of just standing there and running around like a fool to maintain his existence. The Sword Demon slowly turned around and clenched the dagger in his hand. Fog Shadow ambushed him. As Sword Demon was thinking this, he suddenly heard someone shout from the crowd, "Qianli is drunk. It's here. Fuck." The man in front of Sword Demon jumped 2 meters high, turned around, and ran in the direction of the shout. The Sword Demon was still ignored. Tears streamed down Sword Demon's face. 5 seconds countdown. Gu Fei was found at the edge of the resurrection camp. 4 seconds countdown. The attacking players quickly rushed there. 3 seconds countdown. The players attacked Gu Fei. 2 seconds countdown. Gu Fei teleported to dodge the attack. 1 second countdown. Someone found that Gu Fei was not standing in the resurrection camp. 0 seconds countdown. Someone shouted gloomily, "We fell into a trap. It's a diversion." Gu Fei was at a loss. "What's with the diversion? I just got here." The system made a city-wide announcement. The 3rd camp of the rebel army has fallen. The camp has been abandoned. This area will maintain the offline save function, but it will no longer be used as a resurrection area. The originally simple but imposing camp instantly changed its style after the announcement. The word "abandoned" became its new theme. Although there were still so many players here, it did not change its bleak background. The flags became tattered, the tents became crooked, the watchtowers and wooden fences were surrounded by weeds, and some even had mushrooms growing on them. This was the scene of the camp after it fell. Whether it was the victorious side, Gu Fei and Sword Demon, or the defeated attacking players, they all admired the scene after the change in surprise. Sword Demon did not continue to stay. He quietly activated stealth and prepared to retreat. As for Gu Fei, after hearing the system notification, his face lit up and he suddenly took a few steps forward. What else does he want? Many people were still paying attention to Gu Fei. The invasion had succeeded and the camp had been abandoned. But this guy still wanted to step forward. What was he trying to do? A white light flashed. He committed suicide? Someone exclaimed. Is this the loneliness of an expert? Can't find an opponent? He ended his own life? In the end, he went offline. Someone said angrily. The abandoned camp was obviously no longer the camp of the attacking side. It retained the offline function. The attackers could use it, the free third party could use it, and the defending side, Gu Fei, could also use it. Gu Fei had gone offline for a long time. Now that there was a place for him to go offline, he had no reason not to cherish it. Why did he log off? Sword Ghost muttered to himself as he quietly moved away. He had wanted to discuss with Gu Fei about how occupying the enemy's camp would affect the city war, but who would have thought that the first effect would be to give Gu Fei an area where he could log off? So, he quickly took advantage of it. Fuck! Han family young master, who was far away by the Yunjiao lake, smashed his fist angrily. This can't be helped. There is no system assistance in identifying targets in the game. It's not easy to find a specific target in 5 minutes with just the eyes of a player, especially when the target is likely to deliberately disguise himself, Gu Xiaoshang said. Han family young master was expressionless. I'm not targeting this. Then what? Gu Xiaoshang was puzzled. Fuck, Qianli went offline after getting drunk. Tell me, is there such a player? It's the weekend, and the battle is such a big thing, yet he still keeps going offline on time. What kind of quality is that? Han family young master was furious. This. Gu Xiaoshang didn't understand either. For example, in her Rosy Clouds guild, there were more than 1,000 people. About half of them were crazy about the game, while the other half were more restrained. They only treated the game as a supplement to their lives, not the focus of their lives. It was these people who expressed their determination to persevere during the battle. Everyone drank and ate to their heart's content, got enough sleep, and went online to participate in the battle. Maybe he just went offline to relieve himself. Gu Xiaoshang said. If one was hungry, sleepy, or needed to pee in real life, they would feel it in the game. They had to go offline to relieve themselves. When a team was active in a parallel world, they were most afraid of people going to the toilet. They couldn't force people to go offline. If they wanted to go to the toilet, they had to rush back to the main city to go offline. In fact, it wasn't just for team activities. Even individual games hated this problem. Players used this as an excuse to appeal to the officials for the right to go offline freely. However, it couldn't be helped. It wasn't that the officials didn't want to go offline freely, it was just that they couldn't achieve it with the technology. Thus, everyone could only continue to hold back their pee. The officials were also troubled by this problem. They couldn't think of a suitable solution for the time being. They couldn't possibly appeal to everyone to drink less water for the sake of the game, right? Everyone knew that drinking more water was good for one's health. The game company didn't dare to promote the game like this. Therefore, the only solution they could think of was to adjust the respawn points to cover the entire map and not limit it to the main city. The game company's planners called this plan the public toilet construction plan. It couldn't be more appropriate. Gu Xiaoshang's guess was indeed possible. However, 10 minutes passed and Gu Fei was still nowhere to be seen. Han family young master's meticulous plan at Yunjiao Lake seemed like a complete joke. This guy is really something. He still has a mission on him. This is a two-way quest. Isn't he afraid that the other party will complete it and cause him to fail? Gu Xiaoshang complained. Yes, he's not afraid. That's why I said he's a bastard. Han family young master had been suppressing his hatred for a long time. Now that Gu Fei had gone offline, he had lost his target and urgently needed to establish a new one. Their plan had become a joke, but Sword Without Oath and Against the Current still arrived with their troops. Both of them were worried. Their camp had been abandoned, and they felt that the situation was getting more and more complicated. Could it be that Qianli's drunkenness would cause them to lose in the end? Xiaoshang. Seeing Gu Xiaoshang, Sword Without Oath put away his gloomy face and released his elegance. He's here. Gu Xiaoshang said. He's here. Sword without oath rubbed his hands and admired the beautiful scenery of Yunjiao Lake. He felt relaxed and happy. Qianli went offline because he was drunk. Gu Xiaoshang said, "Really? He went offline?" Sword without oath laughed. No matter what Gu Xiaoshang said to him, he would laugh first. After laughing, he reacted and jumped up. What? He went offline? Sword without oath also had Gu Fei as a friend, but the guild leader who had a lot of news to deal with every day did not notice this kind of small system notification. Looking at it, Qianli's drunk ID was indeed black. Did he go to the toilet? Against the current was also at the side. Similarly, he did not notice that Qianli had gone offline because he was drunk. As serious players, they did not believe that Qianli would choose to leave the game at a time like this. I don't think so. It's been more than 10 minutes. Gu Xiaoshang announced. Then why are we still gathered here? Sword without oath was confused. Gu Xiaoshang shrugged helplessly. Let's disperse for now. This was really a case of coming in high spirits and returning in disappointment. Sword without oath wanted to say that since they were already here, it would be pointless to just leave. Why don't they go sit in the bushes over there? But that was all he dared to say. He did not dare to say it out loud. He could only sneak a glance at Gu Xiaoshang. If he saw that Gu Xiaoshang was packing up his guild and preparing to retreat, he could only sigh and reorganize his own guild. Ever since his battle with Gu Fei, Reigning Four Seas had lost his fighting spirit and fighting spirit. Now that he had finally regained his composure, he was met with such an outcome. Many people were feeling emotional, and the guild channel was filled with complaints. However, they could not find the right direction to complain. So, they could only lament that the Battle of Sai City was boring and meaningless. Unsworn Sword could only look on helplessly, not knowing what to say. Now they were going to besiege a city? The siege activity had never stopped. However, the more players died, the less effective the destruction they caused. The players could tell that the quests that existed in the city war weren't just for decoration. It was impossible to take down the city just by charging and killing. Perhaps they had to complete certain quests in order to obtain victory in the city war. The problem was that the quests did not give any hints. Everyone was walking around aimlessly. Naturally, the more they walked, the more bored they became. However, there was a huge quest hidden at Yunjiao Lakeside. Crouching in a small wooden hut 30 miles away, seeing that his family members had arrived, he really wanted to go out and meet them. However, Han family young master was still in the hut and had no intention of going out. He did not know what to do at that moment. Gu Xiaoshang had come to discuss with him about Qianli getting drunk and going offline. He had also heard it. Now, he gathered his courage and went up to Han family young master and asked, Qianli got drunk and went offline? What should we do? What else can we do? Let's disperse. Han family young master finished the wine in his bottle, threw the empty bottle away and walked out. He's leaving just like that? What should I do? 30 miles away was at a loss. Carefully looking around, he slowly walked out of the small wooden hut. Han family young master had already walked far away, ignoring him. 30 miles away was confused. He still had a quest. Wasn't he bait? Why didn't anyone want him anymore? Ambushing players kept coming out from the bushes, heading in the same direction. 30 miles away, he was looking for Jiang Jinjiu, his brother who had gone through thick and thin with him. However, he was not able to find Jiang Jinjiu. Instead, he was seen by Shan Xiling. 30 miles away. Fuck, where did you run off to? Why didn't you reply to my message? Shan Xiling ran over and grabbed him. It's a long story. 30 miles away said. Where's Jiang Jinjiu? Is he with you? Shan Xiling asked. Yeah, I'm looking for him. 30 miles away said. Did you two run away when the fight started? Shan Xiling's face darkened. I heard that Qianli got drunk and went offline. 30 miles away said. Don't talk nonsense, you two. Shan Xiling said with disdain. Let me tell you. 30 miles away secretly looked around and went up to Shan Xiling. I have a quest on me right now. Quest? What's there to be surprised about? I have one on me too. Shan Xiling said. TCH, it's not the kind of quest you're talking about. 30 miles away said. Large-scale quest? Shan Xiling paled. It's the quest that Yin Feng and the others took away. I got it back. 30 miles away said. You got it back? Shan Xiling repeated. Thanks to a series of opportunities, I got it back. 30 miles away said. Still looking around, he didn't see the Han family young master, Gu Xiaoshang, or anyone in the clouds paying attention to him. 30 li away, he was finally convinced that after getting drunk for 1,000 li, people would no longer think of him as a useful person. No one would pay attention to him anymore. If there's a quest, why aren't you telling the president? Find a way to complete it, Shan Xiling said. Don't worry, it's a long story. Where's Jiang Jinjiu? Let's find this brat first. 30 miles away said while sending a message to Jiang Jinjiu. Jiang Jinjiu replied with his coordinates. The two of them went over and found Jiang Jinjiu tied up like a rice dumpling in the grass by the lake. Shan Xiling was shocked and quickly went to untie him. Looking at his mouth, he found that someone had stuffed a rag into it. How did this happen? Shan Xiling didn't understand. Han family young master, that bastard. Jiang Jinjiu cursed. After cursing, he looked around and asked 30 miles away, is he gone? He's gone. That person really can do what he says. 30 miles away exclaimed. At the same time, he was glad that he had been following that person's orders, otherwise his fate would have been very bad. Fuck. Jiang Jinjiu spat out 3 mouthfuls of mud. What the hell is going on? Shan Xiling couldn't understand. The two of them spoke one after another and told him everything that had happened. A blessing in disguise. Shan Xiling was very happy, not understanding the bitterness of the two of them. Go find the guild leader. Fan Xiling's loyalty was very high, so he immediately reported. There's such a thing? When Countercurrent heard this, he was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. 1,000 Miles Drunk had already made up his mind to deal with them, and now that he found out that the quest had somehow landed back on him, he was overjoyed. He didn't pursue the matter of the two running away at the last moment. With this quest, Against the Current was even more concerned about Qianli. He hurriedly went to find Gu Xiaoshang. President Gu, tomorrow Qianli will definitely come online. How should we deal with him? Although the Sword of No Oath was carrying the unstoppable 4 Cs with it, its eyes were constantly searching for Gu Xiaoshang. When it saw that the Sword of No Oath had suddenly gone up to Gu Xiaoshang, it was very surprised and confused, and hurriedly went over as fast as it could. Just as Gu Xiaoshang was saying, "We'll talk about it tomorrow," Unsworn Sword had already come over with a cheeky smile. "What are you talking about?" Against the Current did not say anything. There was no doubt that Gu Xiaoshang knew about the quest. In fact, it could even be said that Gu Xiaoshang had no intention of stealing the quest, which was why the quest had fallen to him. However, Unsworn Sword was someone with a criminal record, so Gu Xiaoshang really did not want this kid to get involved. At the same time, Against the Current was afraid that Gu Xiaoshang would ignore him and tell him the truth. With this woman's unrestrained personality, she would definitely do that. Against the Current was a bit nervous. "Tell me how we'll deal with Qianli when he gets drunk tomorrow," Gu Xiaoshang said. "Little Shang, you arrange it. We'll listen to you." Unsworn Sword expressed his loyalty. "We'll talk about it tomorrow." Gu Xiaoshang still said the same thing. "Then what will your guild do now?" Unsworn Sword saw that Against the Current was silent and was quite happy. It was enough that he was the only one talking to Gu Xiaoshang. "You can just go and do whatever you want." Unsworn Sword thought as he ignored Against the Current and continued to talk nonsense with Gu Xiaoshang. Against the Current let out a sigh of relief, hoping that Unsworn Sword would ignore him. Thus, he told the two to call me if you need anything, and hid far away. And there was another group of people who hid even further away than he did. Looking up under the tree was waiting and waiting to reap the benefits. In the end, he received news that Qianli got drunk and logged off, canceling all operations. Fuck? What kind of person is this? Does he have any sense? Looking up under the tree wanted to borrow someone else's knife to kill him, but his knife disappeared. How depressing was that? Chapter 710. Gu Fei's simple disconnection caused many people in Cloud City to be at a loss. Han family young master also crazily despised him in the mercenary channel. No one dared to reply. Yutian Shenming's tragedy was still fresh in everyone's mind. Han family young master pointed at Sword Demon and asked about their mission. Sword Demon pretended to be deaf and mute. He sneaked to the resurrection camp in the northeast, but even Gu Fei couldn't find a chance here. Sword Demon walked around twice and naturally didn't have a good opportunity to make a move. However, Sword Demon was also a person who couldn't stay idle, so he changed to another camp and tried to provoke the players and camp NPCs to fight each other in the same way as before. However, the players in Cloud City had lost their camp because of this joke of internal strife. They really wouldn't be stupid enough to fall for this again. Sword Demon pretended and was seen through. Sword Demon was actually just idle and had nothing to do. He didn't have much hope in his heart, so he had already prepared a way out. Taking advantage of the other party wanting to surround him, he used a misty ambush to kill a way out and swaggered away. Sword Demon returned to the Assassin's League in the city and received another assassination mission. In the end, it was another inexplicable small leader, so small that even Brother Yu didn't know. This made Brother Yu feel very ashamed. His information was actually missing. In the end, it was Sword Demon who comforted Brother Yu with a few words and decisively cancelled the mission. As a result, after cancelling the mission twice in a row, the Assassin's League gave a serious criticism to Sword Demon, warning him that this kind of work style of picking on the light and fearing the heavy was not acceptable. Sword Demon didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In order to punish Sword Demon, the Assassin's League didn't give him a mission in a fit of pique. Sword Demon walked around Cloud City and didn't find anything else. How boring and lonely. Sword Demon played with the catapult on the city wall for a while and went to the battlefield to kill people. There were so many players, but none of them were his companions. This went on until the morning, and the players were very tired. The city war wasn't like the duel tournament where it would be held at a fixed time every day. Since the event was announced last night, there was no indication of when it would stop. Most of the people who had stayed up all night were Sword Demon and the others who were used to playing all night long. There were also many people who were prepared to stay up all night because of the city war. They could not hold on any longer and retreated after midnight. Compared to last night, when the city war had just begun, the four gates were bustling with people. At this moment, all four directions looked a bit depressed. The players who fought through the night did not come out empty-handed. At the very least, the fact that there was a limit to the number of deaths had been revealed by the players. This situation first occurred in the direction of the South City Gate, where the battle had never stopped. Due to the repeated incidents at the Northern Gate, the guilds that didn't want to get involved with the major guilds had all retreated to the Southern Gate, which was directly opposite the Northern Gate. Even the Black Hand Alliance, which had moved later, had also chosen to settle down at the Southern Gate. No one proposed any kind of cooperation, and no one pretended to be a god and stood up to lead. Everyone just worked hard to attack the system. As they continued to grind and grind, finally, there were players who realized that they were declared dead and could not be more dead, so they withdrew from the city war. This phenomenon was like a contagious disease. After the first person had died, there would be a second and a third person. The system was very fair and treated everyone equally. It was impossible for it to specifically target a certain guild. Countless players reached this threshold one after another. Among them, there were players who made inferences based on the time they stayed in the resurrection camp after death and finally came up with this limit: 25 times. When the player died 25 times, the system would declare them completely dead and withdraw from the city war. This news undoubtedly caused panic among the players. No matter how many times it was, as long as there was such an upper limit, it would cause people to worry. The number of players who recklessly charged on the battlefield suddenly decreased by a lot. Many people began to be cautious and even hesitated to move forward. The battle situation, which originally did not have an advantage, became even more unsightly after this setting was discovered. In the wee hours of the morning, when most players were preparing to go offline to rest, the attacking players could be said to have suffered a crushing defeat. Go offline and rest. Come back as early as possible. The city war will probably only take a few days, so everyone will have to work hard for the next few days. There were basically similar voices in the various guilds. After the guild leaders said a few words before dispersing, everyone returned to the resurrection camp and went offline. Of course, the city war did not completely stop. Those who fought through the night logged off at this time. However, those who logged off on time or those who could not hold on for the second half of the night, after catching up on sleep, thought about the important matter of the city war and rushed to the morning shift. The city war was still ongoing, but it was no longer as grand as it was last night. At this time, the city war in the entire parallel world was considered to have entered a stage. There were already many discussions on the forums. After Brother Yu went offline in the morning, he habitually went to the forum to take a look. The official forums had even specially opened a City War section for the City War event. At this time, it was the most popular of all the sections. The players of the various main cities were discussing the situation of the City War in their main cities. Brother Yu liked to summarize information. Originally, he wanted to summarize some of the settings that he discovered on the first day of the City War and post it. In the end, he discovered that the settings that were posted by the players had already been compiled into a post. This post was even pinned at the top by the moderator. It was quite eye-catching, and the content was constantly being updated. Brother Yu clicked on it and took a look. For example, problems like the upper limit of 25 deaths had long since been incorporated. Some of the settings that Brother Yu knew were all covered in this post. There was nothing for Brother Yu to add. It was more appropriate to absorb some of the knowledge that he did not know from here. In the end, there was strength in numbers. Brother Yu sighed. However, looking at it carefully, the settings were still different from city to city. It could not be generalized. This was especially true for a main city like Linshui City, which had a special terrain. City War and Cloud City were completely different things. Their attacking players were scattered to the surrounding water islands. They sailed their ships to attack from the water, and the system also sailed their ships to meet the enemy on the water. It sounded very interesting, but the players of Linshui City did not think so. Apart from the pinned post, most of the posts that Brother Yu saw in the City War section were players complaining about the bloody and tearful history of the City War. The battle mode of each city was different, but the results were extremely similar. All of them were defeated by the system. No main city saw a clear hope of victory. The one that showed the most improvement was Sunset City. The players of Sunset City used their terrain to cross the main city's dried-up river in an attempt to directly drill into the main city from there. All the players in the city gathered here. They did not attack the city gate, but the river. They forcibly cut off the system's guards on both sides. They resisted the system's pincer attack and stone smashing, vowing to die to climb in. However, when they climbed to the front, they found that the shameless system had already blocked the river. However, the players of Sunset City did not give up. They believed that this was a way to win, and they were prepared to dig through the river with one heart. According to the poster, by the time he posted, he had already dug a big hole. Everyone believed that sooner or later they would be able to dig through. This spirit of persevering in labor in the face of the system's killing was unanimously praised by the players who replied. Many main city players claimed that they wanted to learn this spirit and go back to digging the wall. The matter of the outer city, Brother Yu also looked at it as a joke. After looking through the sea of posts, he finally found something related to Cloud City. The post with the most clicks and replies made Brother Yu sigh in admiration. Qianli, oh Qianli, you really are so bright and outstanding no matter what. What the players of Cloud City were highly discussed about was the appearance of the defending players in their main city. The defending players may not be unique to Cloud City. In addition to Gu Fei and Sword Demon, it is currently known that Apple Vinegar, Broken Water Arrow, Little Ray, and others have entered the camp. From this, it can be seen that the camp already exists. In the case of the system not giving a clear hint, there are still many people who mix into the camp because of luck. But the problem is that such people are absolutely in the minority. Just like Little Ray, he is a defending player. What kind of storm can he set off? A person listlessly sweeping the streets, picking up stones, pushing a cart to deliver goods, simply does not attract any attention. Only Gu Fei, alone, set off countless bloody storms. The two biggest guilds of Cloud City had been drenched in this bloody rain and foul wind. It is unknown which character this player in Cloud City is. In any case, in the post from the perspective of these two major guilds, desperately accusing Qianli of being drunk. The more people read, the more they felt that this person should be the anti-hero of the two major guilds. Since the system has set up Qianli as the defending side, then it is not too much for him to attack the attacking players. What is there to complain about? It is just that he single-handedly overturned two guilds, just a little too strong. But when did being strong become a mistake? Brother, you carefully looked at the replies of the players and found that the players have no hatred for Qianli's actions, no sympathy for the suffering of the raining and singing. What everyone is concerned about is, how can Qianli be so strong? One person against 1,000, how can other players survive? Could it be that this is actually anti-hero Qianli? Brother, you thought to himself. From the final direction of the post, the players finally focused on Qianli's excessive strength, and because of this they were indignant. Using the public opinion of the players to attack Qianli, is that the harmony ghosts doing? Brother, you thought of Yi Xiaowu and the others. At this time, in the game, the elite players of the major guilds have all stayed up for the night, and most of them have already logged off to rest. But in the midst of singing and drinking, the team led by Against the Current still hasn't logged off. Not only did this group of people not show any signs of fatigue, but they were also very energetic. They did not stay up late. In the few hours that they pulled an all-nighter, these characters took turns to log off to rest. Some rested more, some rested less, but no matter what, at this moment they are far more energetic than the players who were still hanging on after an all-nighter. Directly opposite the North Gate, on the abandoned Camp 3, the 212 players of the guild were gathered Against the Current. These were all core members of the guild that he deeply trusted. These 212 people, Against the Current, could all be called out by name. They could be said to be the mainstay of singing and drinking. These 212 people may not have an absolutely balanced class composition, but they all had absolute guild loyalty. Against the Current believed that there wouldn't be any half-hearted slackers among these 212 people. At this time, they were gathered here for the guild's important quest. This time, Against the Current was completely cautious. He didn't even speak in the guild channel. The 212 people were divided into 3 teams, Against the Current, Fan Xiling, and a mage called Sea Breeze. Each led a team. Against the Current stood together with Fan Xiling and Sea Breeze. The topics that the 3 of them discussed were directly transferred to the guild channel, and if there were any suggestions, they could reply. This is the place? Are you sure? Against the Current said, I'm sure. I've asked many people to confirm, this is the place. Sea Breeze said. The 3 of them formed a triangle. In the middle of them was an empty space that belonged to the previous Camp 3. This small area had its own function, logging off and saving. Because of this function, it was fortunate enough to become the place that Qianli stepped on when he went offline in a drunken stupor. As a result, Against the Current now had their eyes on it. Fight against Qianli's drunken stupor? Not to mention the danger, the most important thing was whether or not they could find Qianli's drunken stupor to fight against him. As a result, while Qianli went offline in a drunken stupor, Against the Current found a good opportunity to directly go offline, wait for him to come back online, and then directly ambush him. Normally, this kind of situation wouldn't happen, because under normal circumstances, the offline area was a safe zone. You couldn't even touch it, let alone ambush it. But now, the special thing about city battles was that there were no safe zones. Against the Current felt that this was a chance for them to eliminate Qianli's drunken stupor with minimal losses, so they couldn't miss it. Of course, eliminating him wasn't his main goal. Against the Current was still for his quest. The quest that was 30 miles away from him. According to everyone's analysis, This quest required them to kill Qianli's drunken stupor in order to obtain the next step of information from Gilgino. Or they could directly obtain the quest item from Qianli's drunken stupor. In order to be foolproof against the current thought of this method, Qianli's drunken stupor was very eye-catching. At that time, he was the center of attention, so they easily found out where he went offline and against the current. In order to be cautious and to verify from many sources, they circled an area that was enough for 10 Qianli's drunken stupor to go offline. Against the current believed that there wouldn't be any mistakes, so they led the players to carefully set up this area. Traps, set everything that can be set. Fill up the queue, and let him step on them as soon as he comes online. Fan Xiling commanded. If he falls into a trap, can he still teleport? Someone asked. I don't know. No one knew the skill to teleport. The teleportation distance is 6 meters. Sea Breeze said, let's use this area as the center and stand in a circle with a radius of 6 meters. Sorcerers, practice for a bit. This radius should be enough to cover and instantly kill Qianli's drunken stupor. Wait, if we set the trap now, what if other players come online and step on it? One of the players who set the trap thought of something. This, rather kill the wrong person than let him go? Fan Xiling asked against the current. I have Qianli's drunken stupor as a friend, so there will be a system notification when he comes online. However, if I'm careless, or if I give the order too late, or if everyone reacts too late. This was a serious matter. Against the current decided to be ruthless and nodded. Let's do it this way. If anyone comes up, kill them. It probably won't be so coincidental. How many people will go offline at this place? These unlucky guys can also be a good practice for us. Sea Breeze's thoughts became even more ruthless. Archers and sorcerers are the main attackers. The other classes are on standby to deal with unexpected situations. Against the current gave the final order. I believe there won't be any unexpected situations. I don't believe he can still escape like this. Fan Xiling was full of confidence. The next step was to wait. Warriors, thieves, paladins, and priests could relax a bit, but the sorcerers and archers had to be fully focused. No one dared to imagine what would happen if they were careless and Qianli's drunken stupor reacted. Emergency? Could they really deal with an emergency? There were only 212 people here. Success or failure depended on this one move. Everyone was very clear in their hearts. What time did Qianli's drunken stupor go offline last night? Around 11 a.m. Sleeping for 8 hours isn't enough. Why isn't he online yet? He still needs to eat breakfast, right? Then he should be done eating. He doesn't have a computer at home, so he has to go to the internet cafe? Is he not online because he has something to do? Why isn't he here yet? In the blink of an eye, it was already 10 a.m. After the desolate morning market passed, the game gradually became lively again. Those who had a routine life basically chose to go online at this time. Logically speaking, Gu Fei should have appeared around this time, but he was still nowhere to be seen. However, no one had come online at the center of the circle until now. However, in the 6-meter radius area, there were people coming online from time to time. Some of these people were in the city war, while others were not. However, when they came online and saw the situation, they were all shocked. Those who were in the drunken stupor didn't say much, casually making way for them to leave. When the players saw the murderous looks of this group of people, no one dared to ask anything. At 10:30 a.m., another half an hour passed. While everyone was complaining, a white light suddenly appeared in the center of the circle. Attention! Upstream's loud shout raised everyone's spirits. Everyone had been waiting for this for a long time, so they immediately went all out. Tracking arrows and AoE spells were blasted down in one go. Papa, sounds could be heard from the traps. They didn't see who appeared in the white light because the white light had already appeared again, and the person disappeared without showing his face. Upstream quickly glanced at his friends' list. No, Qianli's drunk was not online. No! Upstream announced regretfully, but he realized that everyone was not very dejected. They had been lonely for a long time, and killing a random person was also a way to exercise their muscles. Everyone was excited for a while, and then they cleaned up and organized what needed to be organized. In the blink of an eye, another half an hour passed, and the white light appeared again. At the same time, Upstream felt like he heard the sound of a system notification. He suddenly had a wonderful feeling, but he still reminded everyone very seriously, attention. It was still a tracking arrow, an AoE spell, and the white light directly enveloped the opponent. Who was it? Before they could see clearly, the person had already disappeared. However, Upstream quickly looked at the system notification and announced excitedly, "It's Qianli's drunk." Damn! Everyone raised their arms in excitement. They had actually succeeded in killing 1,000 miles drunk, even though they had used an extremely shameless method. Damn, so ruthless! Gu Fei, who was sent to the resurrection point as soon as he went online, was very embarrassed. He was actually hated to this extent, and was ambushed at the place where he went offline and attacked as soon as he went online. Who was it? Gu Fei did not even see the person. Chapter 711. The embarrassed Gu Fei didn't even know who the murderer was. He couldn't use the mercenary channel in the city, but it didn't seem like it was the Han family young master's doing. Other than Gu Fei, the rest of the child elite group members were offline. Gu Fei opened the quest list. Sure enough, all the quests he received after dying in the city war had failed, whether it was to find Gilgino or assassinate Sword Without Oath. Gu Fei had no choice but to go back to the two places where the quests were issued to see if the NPCs had anything to say about it. Outside the city, the 212 people who had successfully killed Qianli drunk were so excited that they couldn't calm down for a long time. The guild leader was especially excited and wanted to share this joy with others. In the end, he looked at the guild leaders who had killed Qianli drunk. Sword Without Oath and Gu Shaoshang were offline. Going against the flow swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He had no choice but to turn around and continue to high-five his brother to celebrate. Even Upstream was so happy that he forgot himself, but Fan Xiling was still calm. He was the first to run to the area where Qianli drunk was killed and carefully searched the ground. There was nothing on the ground. Fan Xiling ran back and picked it up. He was also 30 miles away. How is it? Is there any progress on the quest? Quest? Alright, quest. 30 miles away also reacted and quickly opened the quest list, but it was still the same sentence. Do we need to go back and find the NPC? 30 miles away guessed. Upstream also came back to his senses and began to pay attention to the reason they were doing this. There was no system notification from 30 miles away, and there were no quest items on the ground, so the team immediately set off towards Cloud Suburb Lake. NPC Gilgino was currently stationed there. Afraid that the NPC would get lost, he went against the current and specially left someone here to accompany him. Along the way, everyone was still immersed in the excitement of killing Qianli, unable to extricate themselves. Going against the current, they felt like they had traveled back in time. He vaguely remembered that when the guild was first established, he and a few of his brothers had accepted a guild quest. After a few people had sacrificed themselves, they had finally succeeded in killing the boss and completing the quest. Everyone had also been excited for a long time. I haven't had this kind of pure happiness in a long time. It turns out that I need a strong enough opponent to stimulate me. Speaking of which, it was not that he did not have any opponents. It was just that the competition between him and guild leaders like Unsworn Sword and Unchung Matsu required him to resort to every conceivable means. Furthermore, there was never an end to it. Even if he managed to gain the upper hand, he did not feel as exhilarated as he did now. On the other hand, a boss-like existence like Qianli drunk was very satisfying after being defeated. The people who were drinking and singing were in high spirits, singing and laughing along the way. But when they arrived at Yunjiao Lake and found Gilkino, a basin of cold water was poured over their heads. Hey, we've already killed Qianli. Don't play dumb. 30 miles away wanted to grab Gilkino. What's the point of saying this to the NPC? Fan Xiling didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She maintained her calm and looked at Upstream. Upstream was currently experiencing what it meant to be happy for nothing. Of course, killing Qianli drunk was fun, but it was only fun when there was a purpose to it. Even if no one thought about the quest before, everyone had at least one thought in their hearts, that this killing was very meaningful and beneficial. But now, the meaning and benefits were all gone. Gilkino kept repeating the same words he had told 30 miles away before, which clearly meant that there was no progress in the quest at all. How could this be? There was a lot of discussion in the guild channel. After thinking for a moment, Upstream suddenly asked, who said that this quest was to be taken from Qianli drunk? 30 miles away thought for a moment and broke out in a cold sweat. He hadn't heard the NPC's prompt at all. He had only heard it from the Han family young master, but the Han family young master had used him as cannon fodder and hadn't said anything at all. 30 miles away was the most muddle-headed quest player in history. He didn't know the ins and outs of this quest at all. Halfway through, he had exchanged a few words with the NPC and had inexplicably taken the quest. From what he heard from Gilkino's conversation, someone had taken something important from here ahead of time and had to get it back. There was no evidence that this was done by Qianli drunkard. What did I say? 30 miles away stammered. Why did he say that Qianli drunk? Search the Yunjiao lake and see if there are any clues, especially around this small wooden house. Upstream ordered. More than 200 people got to work. 30 miles away stood at the foot of the wall like a child who had done something wrong. The start of this quest is still at the crater. Come. Those who know something come. Let's sort out the plot of this quest. Upstream ordered the people to work while chatting with them in the channel. The person who knew the plot of the quest the best was undoubtedly the person involved. However, 30 miles away's previous quest target, Yin Feng, had already betrayed the guild. Upstream could only piece together the plot of the quest from the people who had worked with him before. Unfortunately, there were no quest maniacs like June Rain or information maniacs like Brother Estimate among the people in drinking and singing. They didn't care about the specifics of the quest at all. Since the guild had ordered them to stand guard, they only cared about doing so. No one had the time to listen to the story of the quest. It was said that this was the mark of an expert. Experts pursued efficiency and rewards when they did quests. Why would they have the time to listen to the plot of the quest? Because the parallel world was a simulation of reality, the NPCs could not talk to you as fast as they could in the game. Many people were annoyed by this. They should have avoided it at all costs, but now that it had not happened to them, they had to take the initiative to ask about it. How was that possible? In the end, Upstream could not figure out anything no matter how hard he tried. On the other hand, he knew more about the quest since he was the first to receive Yin Feng's report. However, it was a shame that Upstream did not pay attention to the plot of the quest. He just listened to Yin Feng's report and did not pay much attention to it. Now that there were no records to check, many things were a blur. He seemed to have a rough idea of what was going on in the party channel, but when everyone saw the guild leader's attitude, they felt that it was not embarrassing for them to know nothing. Therefore, they did not even have the energy to think about it. Damn it. In the end, Upstream still could not figure out what the story of this quest was, so he could only vent his anger in the party channel. Everyone pay attention, this city war quest is not ordinary. In the future, when you accept a quest, make sure you understand the plot. There are some things that we have to deduce based on the plot, right? Just like now, we said that someone took the item, but then we said that Qianli was drunk. Why is it that Qianli was drunk? No one knows, but now Qianli was killed by us without getting anything. Isn't this a joke? Then what do we do now, guild leader? Someone asked. Let's search the surroundings first and see if there are any clues, Upstream said. I have an idea, Shan Xiling suddenly said. Hurry up and say it. Upstream said. Did we forget someone? Shan Xiling said. Who? Sword Demon. Huh. Everyone was startled. At the beginning, at the pit, it was Sword Demon and Qianli who appeared together to cause trouble. These two are friends, and now that they are defending the city together, many of their actions may have been carried out together. If this plot of taking the item is really related to Qianli being drunk, it might not be him, but Sword Demon? Shan Xiling said. What you said makes a lot of sense. Upstream nodded repeatedly. Because Qianli was too strong when he was drunk, we all ignored the existence of Sword Demon. Think about it, the abandonment of Camp 3, according to the information we gathered, at that time, Qianli was drunk and rushed over from another direction. He only logged off after the camp was abandoned, so the abandonment of the camp had nothing to do with Qianli being drunk. It was done by Sword Demon. At that time, everyone was focused on finding where Qianli was. If someone had paid attention to Sword Demon, the camp might not have been lost, Shan Xiling said. That's right, it must be Sword Demon, everyone said. When it comes to PK, Qianli is definitely the number one in the parallel world, but when it comes to running quests, he may not be as good as a veteran like Sword Demon. That's why I say this quest, maybe Sword Demon is the leader, we should look for him, Shan Xiling concluded. Looking for someone again. Hearing this conclusion, everyone felt like vomiting. Sword Demon is not as drunk as Qianli. If he is recognized, I think no one will be afraid to make a move on him. We should act quickly. I think the quests during the city war are very flexible. For example, if Sword Demon is killed at this time, maybe the quest item on him will be picked up by the person who killed him. If it is brought here again, it is very likely that they will continue the quest. You're right. However, Sword Demon is not online right now, Upstream said. Let's wait. Sword Demon is not as difficult to deal with as Qianli drunk. Now that we can confirm that we can't get anything useful from Qianli drunk for the time being, it is better to avoid him for now. When Sword Demon comes online, I think the people from reigning the four seas and between rosy clouds should have arrived. They can deal with Qianli drunk while we pay more attention to Sword Demon. Shan Xiling's thoughts were very mature and thoughtful. Okay, let's do that. Upstream quickly decided, everyone didn't have a good rest last night, let's log off and eat something. We'll also be able to make use of the time difference between us and reigning the four seas and between rosy clouds. Once they're online, they'll naturally organize themselves to deal with 1,000 miles drunk. We'll let them fight it out first. We'll come later and target the Sword Demon. After leaving a few people behind to accompany Gilgino, Counter-Current waited for the others to regroup and log off. This period of time was abnormally calm. There were no large-scale attacks on the city gates. As for small-scale harassment, it was not enough for the system to deal with. Just after noon, a large number of players began to enter the game. This period of rest was not for nothing. Some of them had learned from yesterday's lessons, some of them had come up with new ideas in their sleep, and some of them had learned about the combat experience of other main cities from the forums and were ready to try it out. In short, after a large number of players had logged off dejectedly yesterday, they had regained their fighting spirit. For example, there were dozens of guilds that, after reading the Sunset City attack experience post, carried forward even more and decided to dig a tunnel into the city. At this time, after gathering people to discuss a few words, they had already begun to carry out large-scale construction. The experts of the child elite group also came online one after another. Gu Fei had already left the main city. After failing the death mission, Gu Fei walked through the quest point again. Over at the guild building, he could not receive the bounty of the leader of the 100 Evils, Unsworn Sword. It seemed that the system only gave him one chance. Gu Fei was very helpless and could only change to the second of the 100 Evils, Upstream. The guards were as kind as ever. Just like the previous failed mission, after this failure, the mission was also reissued. The content was still the same: continue to search for Gilgino. Not long after Gu Fei left the city, he saw Sword Demon and the others come online one by one. Gu Fei gloomily said in the channel that he was directly killed at the resurrection point. Everyone naturally laughed at him. Even the Han family young master sighed in admiration. I didn't think of such a cheap method. That's it, I'm going on a mission, Gu Fei said. So Sword Demon privately messaged Gu Fei. What you said is too revealing. Now that everyone knows you're going on a mission, Gongzi still hasn't made arrangements? That's why I said it was a lie. I'm not in a hurry to go on a mission. This mission doesn't have a time limit. Gu Fei said. Sword Demon felt that he was too kind. The two of them, who weren't going on a mission, met up and went straight to the resurrection camp in the northeast direction. After destroying the third camp in the north, the two of them began to think about this camp. At this time, when they arrived near the northeast camp, they found that the camp was heavily guarded. Many players seemed to be preparing to stay here for a long time and had no intention of leaving. It looks like there's no more opportunity today than yesterday. Gu Fei said, "Yeah, let's not talk about the players. Just the 4 guards are troublesome. As soon as you enter the camp, the guards will give you a hint and will accurately find you. Also, as long as the guards don't die, there won't be a hint that the camp has been occupied. It's too difficult to kill these 4 guards. Now that the guild players have learned from our experience, they won't fall for the trick we played last time." Sword Demon said, "Yeah, and those 4 guards are guarding the camp to the death. We won't be able to lure them out. After a few steps, they'll return. We can't pull them to a place where there's no one to kill them." Gu Fei said, "Sigh." The two of them sighed. They walked around the northeast camp and bumped into someone on the way. When Gu Fei saw that it was someone he knew, he didn't avoid it. "Yo, it's you guys. What a coincidence." Gu Fei and Sword Demon walked around and bumped into Shi Xiaotian. "Which guild are you fooling around with now?" Gu Fei greeted. "No guild at the moment." Shi Xiaotian said and then asked, "You too, are you thinking of attacking this camp again?" Of course. Gu Fei didn't hide it because he and Sword Demon were ready to give up. They really didn't have enough people. In the face of the NPC's shameless omniscient view and a large number of cautious players, they really couldn't find a chance to attack. "It's very difficult," Shi Xiaotian said. "It's impossible to complete." Sword Demon sighed. "It would be great if there were as many city defense players as there are siege players. We can just eat this." Speaking of which, how did you two inexplicably become city defense players? Shi Xiaotian asked. "There's a camp, so we became city defense players," Gu Fei said concisely. "If you want to eat this camp, I have an idea," Shi Xiaotian said. "What do you want?" Gu Fei was vigilant. "Look at how nervous you are." Shi Xiaotian smiled and then looked at Sword Demon. "Boss Sword Demon doesn't have a guild now?" "Yes." Sword Demon nodded, but then he realized and quickly changed his words. "Oh no, I temporarily joined a brothers guild in the outer city before the city war. I was going to help, but I didn't expect it to become like this." Sword Demon really didn't have a guild for too long and forgot about this matter. "If that's the case, then there's nothing wrong with you quitting the guild, right? Say, if you quit the guild and then build one now, what will happen?" Shi Xiaotian said. "Build a guild now?" Gu Fei and Sword Demon repeated in unison. "Yeah. Why didn't I think of that?" Gu Fei knocked his head. "I think this new guild will most likely belong to the city defense side. Then we'll have people in our hands. Stir things up, maybe we can even get rid of this camp. This. Sword Demon thought quickly. "I remember that the application system is closed, but I really didn't pay attention to whether it's possible to build a guild or not. Why don't we try?" Gu Fei suggested. Building a guild also requires people to respond. Now that the entire city is closed and the neutral players are all in the wild, where can we find people? Even if we find people, now that the application system is closed, how will they respond? Sword Demon really had a lot of doubts. "There are these settings? We're all outside the city now, so I'm not sure about the situation in the city. But if it's just a lack of people, I can help you get the points," Shi Xiaotian said. "Counting one, we're still short of 18. Thinking of the limit of 20 people, Gu Fei glanced at Shi Xiaoyan unhappily. Shi Xiaotian looked elsewhere and hummed a song. 18? Sword Demon looked at Gu Fei strangely. What kind of math was this? Shouldn't they be short of 17? "I have a guild, brother. Not like yours, you quit when you want." Gu Fei could see that the reborn amethyst girl had accepted him and didn't want him to quit the guild. Gu Fei was a kind person and couldn't bear to let the girls be sad. "It doesn't matter if I join or not. How can I not kill people?" Gu Fei patted Sword Demon's shoulder and said, I said, if it's just to make up the numbers, I'm not just talking about me. I can find 19 people, Shi Xiaotian said. Huh. Gu Fei became suspicious again. Is there a fee? Then create a guild, pay, take the money and immediately leave, then the guild disbands? Is this a new trick to help people make up the numbers? Where did you get so many people? You've already formed a gang? A swindler guild? A swindler mercenary group? Why don't I find Tsubasa Sakuratsuka and call 20 of those kids to make up the numbers? Gu Fei said. I say, isn't the goal of creating a guild for the city battle? What's the point of gathering people to make up the numbers? Sword Demon vomited blood. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.